Come on, man.
What's going on, everybody?
Yes, yes, sir. Welcome to the Vulcan Soapbox, where we deconstruct and question all your common held beliefs that's rooted in fallacious reasoning. You know, in this show, we help you distinguish the sophist from the philosopher. This platform is dedicated to advancing critical thinking skills, which is, is good. That's the true, what I call true self empowerment. I'm Enos, and I'm with my guy Vulcan, who definitely helped me over the years, uh, showed me and highlighted these tools to get more control of my cognitive abilities and be a better critical thinker. Owe a lot to this guy, one of the few altruistic people I met in my life. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce my guy, Vulcan. What's up, bro?
What's the deal, all my folks out there? And by
Yes, sir.
folks, those of you already know, but for those who are new and just tuning in, the Volks is we got the Vulcans. I'm the Vulcan. There was a show, Star Trek, back in the day, and I didn't watch it a whole lot, but I did watch it as a kid. And one thing I always appreciated about the show wasn't just the fact that Captain Kirk was out there doing this thing with all the aliens, but other part of it was the fact that his second man in charge, his right hand man, was a very logical, critical man, a very masculine guy. And even though he had the funny ears, one thing you could say about those people is they valued critical thinking, they valued logic, they valued being sensible and doing what made sense. Now, this show is not just all logic and let's throw emotion and feelings out the window. You know, I'm a big on logos, pathos, and ethos, the ethical part of it, the emotional part of it, the passionate part of it, and also the critical thinking part of it. In the Bible, in the book of John, John 1:1, on down, it talks about Christ being the logos. That's the Greek word behind the word there. It's meaning that's where we get the word logic from. So we're really big on focused on being critical thinkers, being logical. We're commanded to be reasonable. And why that's important is it's not just ivory tower intellectual talking points and thinking. This is about being fair-minded. When you're evaluating or somebody's evaluating you, want them to be fair-minded. You want them to do what makes sense and say things that are sensible and filter out their biases. And that's what this show is really about. And I say that because people have come on the show before and they'll say things like, people are saying misinformation and you're not correcting them on this information or that information. This show is never really meant to be an informational show. It doesn't mean you won't get corrected for saying wrong information. People can correct you if they want to correct you, but people can have good information and be irrational. People have bad information, but be rational. Somebody can have a valid response. It still may be incorrect, but at least it means that the conclusion is followed logically by the premises. So
Yes.
you just got to keep that stuff in mind whenever you're having those kind of discussions. And I'm excited to get in the topic today. We're talking about 19 keys. It's been a guy I wanted to talk about for a long time now. He's all over the internet, a very sharp brother who does a lot of great things for the community. And
Sure.
we've covered people like Dr. Umar Johnson, and we've covered all kind of different people all over the internet circuit. And this guy right here, somebody I want to cover for a long time. And then Enos mentioned the video, and so I checked it out, and I was like, this will be a good video to cover. Now, we talked about it today, so we looked at it really quick, but it's going to be fun to dive into because I thought people can be enriched by the conversation. And hopefully one day we'll talk to the brother about his different thoughts and belief systems, because we're not here to attack in this very soft, pampered era of cancel culture and all that kind of stuff. People get offended if you critique somebody or you want somebody to be cross-examined or you hold somebody to the fire on a position that they take in. But there's nothing wrong with doing that. The man who presents his case first seems right until another comes and cross-examines him. Or it's better to debate an issue without settling it than to settle an issue without debating it. And that's important because that helps us with our cognitive abilities, our critical thinking skills. And we need those skills throughout the day, whether you go at our job, whether you're a janitor, you're the president of the United States, you need critical thinking skills. That's how you decipher information. That's how you know what's important and what you need to focus on in a moment versus what you can put off later on. What's a distraction and what should be the main focal point whenever somebody's communicating with you or you communicating with somebody else. So these tools help us every day in all kinds of situations. In today's time period, we have Scantrons and plug and plays and all the different and AI. We're so tempted to be lazy mentally and not think anymore. So those of us who are enrolled in sales and business, we learn we have to do things to get people to think because they want to be lazy. They don't want to have to do the work. They want things to be easy. And so we have to come up with different types of strategies and techniques to get people to start using their mind. As a teacher, as a business person, as a coach, as a philosopher, all these different kind of ways. And we need to challenge some of these current assumptions we have going on in the world, whether it's the social spectrum, the economic spectrum, the political spectrum, the religious spectrum, the spiritual spectrum, the domestic spectrum, all the romantic spectrum, all these different spectrums need to be evaluated. People are saying things, and a lot of sophists are out there with very cunning, flattering language that pander to us and make our ego, puff up and get emboldened and get strengthened and reaffirmed, when we should be being humble and we should be thinking about what's best for our spiritual as well as those that we care about and love around us. So that's what we're gonna do today on this show. I'm excited about it. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it first. Let me get to the comment. Shout out to Jason Rucker, said critical thinking and logic here. Shout out to Jason Rucker. Good evening, fellas. Hey, I want to add to shout out to Jason. He said critical thinking and logic here. The way, I'm gonna just use a metaphor, like because I was building some things. I had to build a dresser, so I ordered it from Amazon. That's how you got to look at the critical thinking framework. You have steps. You can put your thoughts in categories so you can be better organized. That's what I was doing with the furniture. I'm like, okay, A screw is C. Look at that. Look at it that way. This is why this is important, so you can really put your thoughts in order, so it can have some positive. I'm sorry, I was distracted. Have some positive things for you for your thinking, your speech, and your action. So I just wanted to say that. All right, let's get right to the video. 19 keys. All right. No, you fine. All right, 19 keys message to Black Christians and Muslims. All right.
And this disconnect between this idea of white Jesus. I don't know where the full broader conversation was, because that conversation happened a long time ago.
Let me rewind it a little bit more.
This disconnect between this idea of white Jesus. I don't know where the full broader conversation was, because that conversation happened a long time ago, right? But I know I have a lot of Christian followers. I have a lot of.
Let's go ahead and pause it right there.
I mean,
all right.
I know we try to, we discovered the video today, so we try to like find some timestamps so we can cover some of the material.
What's up? I actually seen that video he was referring to. We could definitely play that, bro.
If you want to. It's up to you. So I want to address this white Jesus. We've covered it before. We'll have to cover it again because it's just circulating around the internet. But the whole concept of a white Jesus, y'all, we have to understand it's troublesome in multiple ways, irrational in multiple ways. If right now me and Enos started a movement, right? And we started this movement, maybe it's about positivity and it's about world peace and solving famine and hunger and stuff like that. And we have it in Africa. The pictures people are going to have in Africa are going to be Black people pictures. As it expands into China, people are going to make pictures in Chinese. And then when you go to India, it's going to be the same thing. Most religions, irrespective of the theology that you particularly subscribe to, they tend to make erect images that look like they're familiar with. You wouldn't expect somebody that is making an image to draw an image of somebody that doesn't look like them, because that's not as easy to do. It's easy to draw people that look like you or look like the people that you are accustomed to seeing. So you notice Thor, and it's going to look like the Vikings. Notice that Odin, and I'm not Odin, that's the Vikings again. There's Zeus and people like that. Hercules, they're gonna look like the Greeks. You're gonna see that big old sharp calf muscle. You're gonna notice that thing because they're drawing figures that look like themselves. Now, the thing about Christianity specifically is Christianity is from the Middle East, so people in the Bible weren't white, but the Europeans became Christian, and they brought that where they went, and so the art followed them, and it looked like them. Now, I'm not saying that art was never used to subjugate people or to create some type of human hierarchy where the people at the top that look like the pictures are the closest one to God. But that's a pretty irrational belief. I'm not saying people may not have succumbed to that kind of a belief system or that type of oppression during the moment, but generally speaking, wherever Christianity goes, the art's going to look like the people that are drawing it. And that just makes sense if you think about it. It's not really complicated. And that's why it's important to understand explanatory power and explanatory scope. When somebody's giving you an explanation of something, like this is because of this, explanatory power and explanatory scope gives you a framework, a system, a rubric to work by where you can compare and see, is this the best explanation of that? It may not be a bad explanation. It just may not be the best explanation. Well, Jesus is white because it's the white man's religion. Is that really the best explanation of why Jesus is white in some pictures? Or is it because the Europeans that colonized that area brought their art like they brought their food, like they brought other things with them, and so the pictures look like that? From a biblical standpoint, the Bible really doesn't explain what Jesus looks like. It doesn't describe Jesus other than very generic things like he had no form of comeliness, that anyone should desire him, which is typically mean that he's not considered to be a very attractive man or noticeably attractive man. Historic, in the Bible, people refer to a vision of him, but in that vision, it talks about other things, that his face shined bright and he had stars and stuff like that on him. So if you take that literally, you'd be taking that stuff literally as well. So generally, that vision is not considered to be meant to be some kind of depiction of what Jesus actually looked like, and that's really important. So the Bible doesn't really depict what Jesus looks like specifically. So people, if they're going to draw Jesus, which is not forbidden in the Bible, it's not like the Quran where you're not allowed to, erect any images of the prophet or something like that. There's nothing that prohibits people drawing their perception of Jesus, or of painting their perception of Jesus, or sculpting their perception of Jesus. But they shouldn't idolize that. They should just recognize that that's some type of symbol or some type of representation of the, Jesus Christ as a deity. That's fine. But we got to understand that that's not meant to be taken as what he actually looked like. So when people say you got this picture of the white Jesus and stuff like that, a lot of that is just hoopla and sophistry to distract you from the main reason, the main point. They stir you up emotionally. We would call that appeal to emotion fallacy. I'm gonna get you riled up emotionally because you're thinking about Jesus being white. It makes you think about your oppression, not even your oppression, but the oppression of your ancestors primarily.
Yeah.
And then now you might want to reject the whole religion or the whole spirituality that started in the Middle East anyway, or right by Africa, started over there anyway. But now you're rejecting it because a group of people that got Christianized colonized certain areas and brought it with them. It's really anachronistic, meaning it's out of time. It doesn't fit the timelines. The religion's been around for a long time before there was even what we would call white people. So for somebody to come later on, trying to come lately and say that it's a white man's religion and they're using the depictions of Jesus that are white to subjugate you, especially in 2025, it's just ridiculous. And so no serious scholarship would really accept that as any type of real fact. So anyways, we can go back into it.
All right, let me play the video he was referencing.
People, how come they God gives them prosperity and our God doesn't? Right? So I say, the greatest religion is truth. You understand me? If your religion stops you from believing in something that you think is truth, is limiting you. You understand me? And why? That means that some of those tenets have to be built on falsehood. There's a lot of black men in America today, to this day, and they're going to do it still. They get white Jesus tatted on them. They get the white Jesus chain. You understand me? What does that mean? That means a white man, your God. I don't care how you slice it, how you put it. That features that you put on there comes from a white family, right, that decided that they want their son to be the image of God. And we worship that to this day, right? So
that's it.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, I mean, I already covered some of this. I won't go into the white man as God thing too specifically. I guess I will say this point right here because he mentions about, I'm trying to write down the notes so I wanted to interrupt the video. But he says the white man's God because you have it tatted on you. Now, if you're getting a tattoo, Jesus is going to be the color whatever your skin is, unless you get him colored in. So again, and this is part of my issue when you watch this guy. When I watched the video the first time, he speaks about debate and having conversations about what we believe in a disparaging way. He discourages it, but he still wants to be able to sneak his teachings into the conversation. You'll see this recurring theme, and as we look more into his beliefs and what he's saying, you will realize that he's smuggling his beliefs in, but our filters aren't set the right way to filter out those spiritual beliefs that he has, because he's like, hey, I don't want to, let's talk about religion after we free from our oppressor. But if you understand his religion, you'll understand why he's saying that. That's something that they all say, and the reason why they say that is because their spiritual beliefs don't sound spiritual like that. Their spiritual beliefs is separatism, black elitism, and things of that nature. So when they're talking that talk, it'd be like somebody's talking about Jesus turned water into wine, or Jesus talking about, those who worship me must worship me in spirit and truth. Now, when somebody says worship, spirit, and truth, we hear that, oh, that's religious language. They don't have that type of language in their doctrine specifically. So their stuff is going to sound more practical and earthly. Like, we need to separate from our oppressor. That's how their religion communicates their spirituality. So what he's doing when he says, we'll talk about religion when we get there, and I know we're going to talk about it later, so I don't want to ruin everything I'm going to say about it. But just specifically, that's how they speak spiritually. And we'll get more into that. The second point he mentioned is greatest religion is truth. Greatest religion is truth. What did Jesus say that he was? I am the way, the truth, and the light. And no man comes to the Father but through me. So that's true, but truth was embodied in a person named Jesus. And so when he talks about that being the greatest religion, he has to understand that that's what Christianity's been saying for centuries and longer.
People I work with, most of them, a lot of times are Christians, right? And it's interesting. And in the clip, he has a brother, and I don't know who this individual is, but he asserted false claims about Maswar Muhammad, right? For those who don't know who Maswar Muhammad is, he is the one who taught the Honorable Elijah Muhammad for 3.5 years, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad started the Nation of Islam from there on. And so in the clip, he asserts that Maswar Muhammad, right, is a white man from Europe, which is interesting because Maswar Muhammad is not a white man from Europe. He is a mixed man from Mecca. And when I think about our Christian brothers and I think about Black Muslims, they have something in common actually in that regard, that both of them have what could be considered a savior from the Middle East.
You can go ahead and pause it right here. I think we're pretty much done with this part of this clip. But I want to make this point about what he's saying. I don't think it matters what he looks like. Now, what the person looks like is important for their religion, not for Christians. So whether he's white, mixed, Hispanic, that doesn't matter in Christian doctrine. In the Bible, it teaches that, neither male nor female, nor slave, nor free, nor Greek, or whatever the other one was that it said. It's saying that they're all one in Christ. So that doesn't matter in the Bible about what you are. The Bible even says, avoid people who go on and on about genealogies. We're told to avoid people like that. So when he's talking about what his, I don't think that's the important part of understanding 19 Keys and the doctrine that he holds to. It's important to understand who that guy was that was mentoring Elijah Muhammad. Under my understanding that I have from what I've looked into is that to them, he was Allah.
Yeah.
And Allah is a man. So, and that's important when you watch this video. Everybody, all the folks out there, you got to understand when you're hearing these people communicate, one thing you got to understand is these guys are operating in their religion, even if it doesn't sound religious. It's meant to be a more practical type of religion. It's a cult of a few different religions, a little Jehovah's Witness in there, a little Scientology, a little Christianity, a little Islam, and maybe a couple other ones in there as well. And that being the case, it's meant to sound like a more practical version of those religions. So their religious communication is not going to sound like most religious books because they're not coming out of one book specifically. They believe Allah was a man. That's why Muslims historically don't consider the Nation of Islam's true Muslims. Their beliefs are not like Muslim beliefs. They believe Allah was a man. Islamic belief is that God is transcendent. God cannot be a man. That's the Muslim belief. That's one of the conversations you'll see happening whenever you watch Christian scholars and Muslim scholars have conversations about the deity of Christ. This comes up. But they believe that Allah was a man. And that's important to understand that that guy is referred to. It doesn't matter what color he is for the conversation, a meaningful conversation. It's about who he was to Elijah Muhammad and to 19 Keys, which was God in the flesh. We can continue.
I don't think it's so odd that Black Muslims in America believe that a man came from the Middle East, gave them knowledge of self, taught one amongst them, raised him up, and
hold on, you just playing it, or are you going to the next timestamp?
Yeah, I was playing it. Let me get to the next timestamp, bro. Thanks for that reminder.
Yeah, so one thing I like about 19 Keys, very sharp guy, a great communicator. I can tell he has a passion for the community. I just want people to understand that part of that passion for the community is something that's a part of their religious base. That's something that all Nation of Islam people share, because in their doctrine to focus on the here and now earthly kingdom and the Black man rising up to be the leaders, the rulers on earth. So that's why you're going to hear them say the separatist talk. We need to get our own and all that stuff. It's not just some guy you went to school with one day who was wearing the African stuff and saying that we need to unite. It's not Pan-African where you just like, hey, look, we want to have our own continent and country. They believe that religiously that Black people were meant to rule the earth. And so that's why they say we have to separate. We have to get our own. We have to be sustainable. It doesn't mean what some of the stuff they're saying is not true. People do need to be self-dependent. People do need to be able to do things on their own. People do need to eat healthier and not drink so much alcohol and not be drunken with orgies and stuff like that. Those are things that they communicate that are true. But we got to separate the truth of what they're saying from their religious points that aren't grounded in reason and logic and understanding of geopolitics and economics and stuff like that. It's a religious fervor they have that Black people separate and become rulers on this earth. Found it yet?
Yep.
Oh, I was waiting on you there.
Yeah, got you.
Muslims almost never get along. And I don't think they realize why they don't get along.
Can you go a little further back?
Always arguing, because they realize why Black Christians have here is this case, right, and why Black Christians and Muslims almost never get along. And I don't think they realize why they don't get along, right? And why they always arguing. Because Honorable Elijah Muhammad had a quote that said that we can argue about religion when we're free. And I love it. I love that quote. And Minister Farrakhan, he said something. He said, I'm a Christian and I'm a Muslim. And I'm paraphrasing. But he said, when you have true knowledge yourself, right, and you understand that religion, then you can see it in someone, right? Whether they call themselves a Christian or Muslim. Right. And I believe that to be true, because there's a lot of people with faith but not understanding. And then I
pause it real quick.
Yeah.
So just to cover this. You want to say something, Enos?
Yeah, he's framing it. He's framing the way we should. It's a worldview, right? So he's saying that we have to focus on being free first. For one question, I got to ask: free from what? That's the first question. But anyway, he's framing it in a linear way. Get free, then have a religious debate, which is historically it'll go against our people, what we've been doing for centuries. Theology was always the ground floor before you got to the next level. That's your bedrock of beliefs. And for many Black communities, because it gives you motivation. And it's the nucleus to liberating the people. So that's why I say that's what it is, a category error. So he's separating like this is another ideology, but no, this is actually a religion is a framework you build off your ideas to continue
absolutely
through life.
That's why every single monumental moment in human
Category mistake. My
existence.
bad.
Sorry,
Mhm.
go ahead.
No, I was just saying it was category mistake. I wanted to make sure I framed it that way. But go ahead.
Yeah, so that's why you'll notice in every single civilization, the most important aspects of humanity, whether it's birth, rites of passage, marriage, uh, uh, being unalived, all these monumental moments in our lives, they always have religious ceremonies associated with them in every part of the world. It's because in those moments of our humanity, what we lean on, what compels us, what motivates us, what gives us hope, what gives us salvation, what gives us relief
Hmm.
is the religious foundations that we have, our spiritual beliefs. We're not just physical beings. We're not just a brawl evolved stardust and evolved broccoli. We're not just meat machines walking around. We have feelings, we have desires, we have hopes, we have love, we have justice, we have despair, we have disappointment, we have loss. We experience all of these things. And the answer and the way to deal with these things is not going to be mathematics. It's not going to be, war and those kind of things. It's going to be your spiritual underpinnings. What drives you? What keeps you going? We know that historically with slavery, which is something that they love to discuss all the time. We know with slavery, that's what helped the slaves get through. If you read the literature from Frederick Douglass all the way to Abraham Lincoln, anybody you can talk about, it was their religious practices that and their religious ideas. The
Yep.
abolitionists were evangelicals and
Right.
Quakers and stuff like that.
Hmm.
That's what told them, hey, look, we can't enslave these people. These people are made in the image of God.
Hmm.
Slavery was happening around the world in all civilizations, and it's still happening now. There's good evidence to suggest that there's more slavery happening now than there was in the 1600s. So my point is saying, and whether that's true or not, the point that I'm making is this: in all those different practices that are going on right now, what people use to get through those tough times was their spiritual practices, their religion. So when he's saying, let's get free first and worry about our spirituality, our religion after the fact, most people passed away before they saw their liberation.
Yeah.
Whether it was during chattel slavery, whether it's people that are going through tough times today, whether in trafficking that's going on, or whatever the case may be. If you tell people you can't just disassociate people from their meanings and purposes for life and say, let's focus on oppression. Why is oppression bad? Why is liberation good? Why should I strive for freedom? All of these things are religious questions that get at the heart and soul of a human being. So when he says, we'll debate, we'll worry about that after the fact. That person doesn't know if there's any after the fact. They have hope that they'll get out of that oppression. They have hope, but in the present moment, as they live day to day with their husbands, their wives, their children, their parents, they need something that helps them to be a better father, a better mother. They need a reason for those types of things. Why do I keep going to this job that I can't stand going to? Well, it's
Hmm.
'cause I want to take. I'm told I need to be a good father, and I want to be a good father. But in my moments of weakness, I'm told I'm a good father. I got other men holding me accountable to being a good father, to being a good son, to being a good daughter, to being a good wife. And we need those foundations. That's why almost every single civilization that has ever existed has had those things, have had those foundations in spirituality. You can't watch an old Greek movie with the Spartans or the Troy and all that stuff.
Yeah.
The one with Henry Cavill and he's fighting and the Greek mythology stuff. Those are religious and they had their own priests and stuff like that. That's the practices they were going to. The shaman and every culture, Native Americans, whatever you want to say, it was their spiritual practices that got them through that stuff. And so when these guys try to separate it, and then they want to make it seem like, look, y'all, I'm not trying to fight you about religion. Let's just
Yeah.
wait till
Yeah.
it's all. Let's just wait till later on to solve this. We can all be brothers and have our different beliefs. They're saying that because the base of how they even came to exist was a man who mixed a bunch of religions together, just like the
Hmm.
Baha'i faith. People in the Baha'i faith are going to say, hey, we're all brothers, come together. And we are all brothers in a real sense. But it's not because they're just being altruistic and they just love everybody. That's a part of their religious core to say
Yeah.
that because they don't have a foundation in the specific religion. They're just transient, moving about. Whatever one serves their purpose in the moment. Because that's the founder, the one who mentored Elijah Muhammad. He wasn't any one religion. They're not Muslim. The Muslims reject them because their beliefs don't match Muslim beliefs at all. They're not Christian. They quote the Bible the most because their main pull that they try to to get into their group, their cult, is Christians. That's all. Most of their converts. What percentage of their converts would you say are probably Christians historically for them? What, 80, 90%?
90, high 90.
Not high 90s. You know what I'm saying? So they're going to quote the Bible because
that's
now
what
if they were
John. That's what John Henry Clark said. That he said that most of the Nation of Islam members he ran into was ex-bitter Christians that wanted to combat Christianity. That's what he said back in the 60s.
Experience, I met a really cool, smooth brother who was very sharp, Nation of Islam guy. When I first really started getting into understanding the Bible and becoming a Christian, me and him would sit down and go somewhere and we would just study. And he was a sharp brother and he would walk me through things. But I could read now. I wasn't a dummy. I could read and I understood critical thinking. And I would notice he would quote the Bible all the time. And I'm thinking in my head, I didn't know there was a difference between Muslims and black Muslims or anything like that. I'm thinking, oh, this Muslims like to wear bow ties. That's how I looked at it. You know, they wear, you know, sheets and stuff. Another part of the world. Of course, I'm 19 years old at the time. I'm a little ignorant, but you know, a lot of ignorant. And I'm thinking, oh, they wear bow ties, and they want to show the black male image and raise our ethnic image. So I thought that was a good thing, and that was a good thing, and that there was a lot of genuine, you know, the influence that they had over me and over the community. What we got to learn when he would quote the Bible, it was usually out of context. And I'm looking at the guy going like, this is a sharp guy. Like, why is he quoting this out of context? That's clearly not what it means. And then when we would have dialogue about it, he was always very polite, sharp guy, but he wouldn't interact or engage with me about the fact that he was taking the verses out of context. He wasn't exegeting it properly. And then I start to realize either he's slower than I'm thinking he is, or there's a religious reason why he can't acquiesce to my point on the interpretation. He can't submit to this clear example of him misinterpreting the passage. And then I started learning about their doctrine, which they quote the Bible more than anything else. So it was surprising to me, but I shouldn't have been that surprising. But on top of that, their interpretations, you're not going to be able to get outside of their school or their group, because you're not going to find it in the grammar. You're not going to find it in the syntax. You're not going to find it in the linguistics of it. It's an interpretation. They're eisegeting, they're bringing a meaning, and they're placing it in the text. You would need them to walk you through it, because you're not going to find it just by reading it yourself, reading left to right, top to bottom. So that's one thing I noticed about what they had going on. Go ahead.
Yeah, and like I said, what I was saying earlier, I said that, you know, I mentioned that was a category mistake because he was looking at Christianity as an optional ideology, and I just want to reiterate that historically, Black communities, Christianity was the ground floor for most of our communities, and it was actually the best way I could say it, it's a moral framework of dignity. So if you do want to advance the people in our country, look at it as a moral framework of dignity. And this is something I didn't have a decent understanding of this in the past, and that's why maybe why I was saying it in the introduction, why my mind might have been scattered because it wasn't structured. So if you have if you're building your ideas and your worldview off a certain framework, then you can have more. You can understand the world better. So moral framework, I mentioned that, and we said this in the past before, Imago Dei, which means humans made in the image of God. This gave, I'm just speaking of the context of Black Americans, this gave our ancestors, you know, the foundation of believing that they was fully human. And what this guy is doing, 19 Keys, he's dismissive. He's dismissing that this was actually the nucleus of liberating our people in the past. So, and then you could think that that's why they was using stuff like, you read the slave narratives or things in Jim Crow, they would reference Exodus, you know, Israel, freedom from Egypt, you know, a lot of passages and things in the Bible which gave them that hope to continue to the next day. Religions give you meaning and suffering, right? So that's what I'm just right now when I'm explaining, I'm building off the framework to really organize.
Yeah, and it gives you meaning outside of suffering, obviously, as both of us know, but especially in those vulnerable moments, because I'm you know, we're focusing on the suffering because he's talking about oppression and our need to be
which I think is the oppression word, that's not, I'm gonna just nitpick his words. I get if you say I think it would be more appropriate to say disadvantages we have because of the past, but to say that we are oppressed, that's not
Yeah, especially in today's
accurate.
time period, to say we're
Today's time
oppressed
period.
is very exaggerated. You know, to say that there's certain disadvantage to being black people in America, I would definitely rightly say that from
Yeah.
historical reasons. And today, there's still studies coming out talking about how if you have a certain name, you're discriminated against. If you look a certain way, you have to have a certain amount of added points on your credit score, whatever the case may be, to have same access to certain things. So that's on the disadvantage side. Now there's advantages too. There's studies that show that, Asians and whites have to have a certain amount of points higher to get interest in a certain types of colleges over an African American person or FBA person, whatever you want to call us at this point in time. So there's advantages and disadvantages, and we have to acknowledge both of them. And to the point to where these guys or anybody's doing work to try to bring more equity and balance to this union that we want to make more perfect, and that's always going to be appreciated. But to make it seem like we're oppressed is very hyperbolic. The blacks here in America are the richest blacks in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, if we're being honest, most people that are saying on social media that say we're oppressed and this, that, and the other, they're wearing Gucci and Louis.
Yeah.
And they have nice big homes. They're good looking. They're well manicured. They have access to women that kings in the past had access to.
Yeah.
Not all kings, just kings that really had an embarrassment of affluence. So these men have access to women and clothing and food and drinks and libations, if you want to call it, and the nectar of the gods that was undreamed of, undreamt of back in the day. So when these people are saying they're oppressed and stuff, I even look at where he is right now. He's dressed really nice. He's very well groomed. He's got all kind of different amenities around him and stuff like that. This doesn't look like somebody who's being oppressed. And we could be undermining the plight of our ancestors by calling this oppression. It reminds me of when Dr. Umar was saying something like, the if you guys in the NBA and NFL are just slaves, are just because they're in the same situation as a slave. And I'm like, you're talking about the people that the top richest people that have ever lived in the world are slaves that get paid a lot of money to play a game, that people celebrate them all around the world. These guys are so celebrated that if they just write their name down on something, it becomes worth money. Remember when O.J. Simpson was going through his problems? What was he doing? Signing footballs. How is that oppression? What slave back in the Chattel South can write his name and make money? It was property. And so a lot of these guys do a disservice. Now, again, with the Nation of Islam guys, to their credit, they have to give us the impression, the impression that we're still in the fight of civil rights. We're still in the fight of slavery. They have to give us that impression for them to have meaning, because they were birthed in that. This religion didn't exist until this was going on. Christianity, real Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, these religions go back thousands of years in different circumstances. Nation of Islam was birthed right here during oppression of Black people. So and that's when you could tell a man-made religion. It's very centered on what was happening at the time. Yeah, and so they can't break out of it. They can't grow because their doctrine is outdated. So they have to always speak as though we're still where we were when Elijah Muhammad was alive. Even though Elijah Muhammad was living a great life.
Yeah, one of the richest. Yeah.
So my point is saying. So you got something you want to say about that?
No, I would just agree with you. Yeah, the leaders they do live lavish. I want to say lavish lifestyle, but a really good life. I'm gonna say this: making it off talking about race.
Yeah.
In a capitalist society, they're able to reach certain tax brackets that most Black people won't be able to reach, and they're doing it off just talking about race and oppression.
They do good stuff for the community, as both of us know. But one thing I will say, do you think they can get away with doing this kind of stuff in China?
No. Mhm.
So we got to
So,
understand the riches that we have over here to even be able to
yeah.
express ourselves freely and talk about oppressor class. This is
Hmm.
like another form of Marxism with
Yeah.
a black slant to it. So we can continue.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to say it lacks the epistemic grounding. So, because when you don't have that moral law, you focus freedom, you put freedom, you just attach it to only political or material terms, right?
Hmm.
And that's the error, which is faith in the Judeo Christian always was beyond system of oppression. It's beyond politics. It's beyond the material world. So that's why it doesn't have a firm foundation to really grow and foster to something that's meaningful.
Yeah,
You know,
what was stopping the slaves from deleting themselves on a
man,
mass scale if it was all about materialism and building a kingdom on this
that
earth?
that's why Dr. Cornel West stresses the importance of Christianity, because he said it's important for the liberation movement because this could avoid blacks um, adopting a nihilistic perspective, nihilism, which nihilism you should research does lead to, deleting yourself, man. So I didn't even realize that. I was just thinking about this as a researcher. I was like, this is why some of the freedom fighters in the past was stressing how important religion is,
Yeah, and this
because
is funny because even the Pan Africanist guy who founded the Pan Africanist
Mark
movement,
Marcus Garvey,
he was similar
he
concepts about the
said it,
importance of not people
religion.
not losing their religious practice. Now you see Dr. Umar saying messages that are antithetical to what his
Yeah.
predecessor said. So I think you make a great point. It's one of the things we talked about when we first started communicating about these topics again. When I was like, "Well, where are you getting the concept of justice from? How you know justice exists?"
Good
Because that's
questions.
that
Yeah.
thing about nihilism. Like, okay, you sure this stuff exists or does it? If it doesn't, if we're just going to focus on immediately what we have and don't have and what's happening to us, what's not happening to us, and you're not getting what you want, why not? Why wouldn't people? Some people might just end it.
But do you
You
know
know?
what's and that was good questions when you used to ask me that. That was something that I don't hear, especially in the woke women today. You don't hear people really break down or give they philosophical religious reasons. I'm talking about
The
the
woke,
leaders now.
the woke movement. The woke movement.
Yeah, the woke movement.
Mhm.
So when he said the freedom, this is why I might have to hear it again. The contradiction. He's saying we can't talk about freedom unless we can't talk about religion unless we get free first. That's the part. So why should we be free? That's the philosophical questions you was asked. Why is that important anyway? If
And more
quote
important,
unquote, if we are oppressed, why is that important
yeah,
for
and
us
then
to
we
be
got to be
free?
honest about the fact that I mean that's not historically that's not how it worked. What happened
Mhm.
is people focused on spirituality and led to freedom, whether it was
Yes.
the
Yes.
abolitionists because the blacks couldn't free themselves.
Hmm.
There was white allies on the side of God that were saying Abraham Lincoln. What I mean, I think he's quoted as saying if slavery is not wrong, I don't know if anything's wrong, or something of that nature. And so there was an idea. These guys were like, hey, this stuff is not right, and people got to understand. Even though we look back from 2025 and be like, I mean, that's common sense that slavery is wrong, right?
Hmm.
Slavery was everywhere in that time of the world, all the way back to the Roman Empire where the Bible comes from. You go to Spartans and they had slaves in Greece, they had slaves in India, they had slaves in China. Korea had like a 1500-year streak of slavery. Slavery is going on right now in Africa. So my
Hmm.
point is just saying that the only people that ever had an issue with slavery for most of human history was the slave.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
You don't start seeing anti-slave, rhetoric and abolitionist movements until you get into Christendom. That's when they're like, hey, look,
That's true.
this person's made in the image of God too. And the Bible says that Jesus is the God of all nations and tribes and peoples. So we might be enslaving one of his children. You see what I'm saying? And they're like, hey,
Hmm.
we shouldn't be doing that. That's a religious, spiritual concept that led to freedom. 22 million Africans were castrated and enslaved by Arab slave trade. Now
Yeah.
it's quote
That's.
unquote Muslim brothers. You see what I'm saying? So my point
Hmm.
is saying that it's not about a particular religion. Christians had slaves historically. Muslims had the Hindus, Buddhists, whoever it is. All of them had their own versions of slavery at different
Africans
points in
have
time.
slave.
Yeah,
Nigerians have slave.
absolutely. So and so that is not to minimize how evil slavery was. It's just to
Yes.
go, why did this people group over here create a whole movement of non-slaves that were saying we got to stop this? They literally fought a war mostly because of this issue.
Yeah, the most bloodiest war that this country ever seen, Civil War. That was the most casualties.
Yeah,
You
so
know?
we got to understand that, and I'm not saying that say, hey, America
Yeah,
deserves to be for a pass for what they did. I'm
of
saying that
course. Yeah.
these are different people. The people that came in and brought slavery weren't the people that were fighting for it. Yeah, I'm just
Mhm.
saying this is a continent, this is a country, this is a nation, a people group, and they had to have conversations. It wasn't smooth like you could look back to 2025 and be like, it's wrong. Let's just sign an executive order to end it. If he would have signed an executive order to end it without getting the people involved, there would have been rebellion. People weren't ready to give it up yet. So things take an unfortunate, slow process. Anybody who's had to implement things at a business or at a church or some type of organization with a lot of people involved, it's not always as simple as just signing something or just saying, hey, look, this is what we're going to do moving forward. This takes conversations and meetings and slow, cumulative implementation strategies to disseminate the information and the culture,
Yeah.
whatever it's going to take to get this thing rolling. And so it took way too long for it to end. But at the same time, this country gets a lot of credit for ending it as fast as it did. And it didn't end
Yeah.
it the fastest, but other European places that ended it before it and stuff like that. But it was all
Mhm.
based out of the spiritual religious beliefs. So you can't say we're about our religion later on after we got out of the oppressor. That's their religion speaking. So when they say, so when you hear a Nation of Islam person say something like, we'll debate religion after we get free, that's them communicating their religion. But because their
That's
religion,
what I'm saying.
yeah, but
Yeah.
because their religion doesn't sound religious like Muslims or Christians, they can sneak it in there and you're going like, okay, that makes sense. No. That is his religion. His religion is saying, look, let's not debate about religion because they can't debate on religion. They don't have a religion specifically. They have a mixture of different religions and they don't have an allegiance to any of them. So
You want to go to the next topic?
that's why you notice with Malcolm X, he was Nation of Islam, and then later on he became a regular Muslim because of the fact he learned that distinction. They caught him when he was young and vulnerable and ignorant about the world and religions and stuff like that. And he believed this man was Allah. This man was the prophet of Allah. And Allah was a man, the prophet was a man. And then he later on realized these were lies. But we can continue.
Yeah. This is what I would add one more thing. When people use the oppression word, that's to me, that's weaponizing your language. To provoke
Peel the emotion.
Yeah, that's dangerous. All right. Next topic. Let's go. You want to go to the 420?
Yeah.
All right, let's go there.
Idea and said, let me challenge the Nation of Islam, which is in the 30-year anniversary of the Million Man March. And the Million Man March was a movement, right, of 1 million plus Black men. It was Christian leaders, Muslim leaders, entertainment, athletes, all came together. Why? It was a central idea of atonement and unity. And at a time in 2025, 30-year anniversary, we actually need that more than ever. So if y'all notice, y'all have never seen me argue with a Christian man about religion before. And there's a reason that I don't do that. Number one, I am not a religious scholar, right? There's a brother named Dr. Wesley Muhammad. Now, he is a scholar, and he can give you a full education and breakdown so that there is no mistakes. And I think he's one of the best representatives that the Nation of Islam has when it comes to giving one enlightenment on the knowledge, right? That comes from the Nation of Islam. And so when Jesus was mocked, though, by Roman soldiers, you understand me? He said, forgive them, Father, for they know not.
All right. What's your thoughts on that? Religious scholars, why he doesn't want to debate other religious scholars?
Everybody is not meant to be a debater, but and so I think that he has the right to say, you know what, I'm not really going to do the debate thing. I'd rather leave with the people who are more skilled, more adept at that have been doing it longer and are going to make fewer mistakes. That, to his credit, is a very positive and a dignified response, because you don't want to do a poor job of communicating, because you could deceive the person that's listening to you, as well as your own self, because you can get tongue tied and twisted and all that kind of good stuff. But one thing I think is important, people got to realize, if you're going to be publicly teaching, Now, if you're going to teach in your mosque, whatever they call the place where they congregate, that's
Yeah,
one thing. If somebody
mosque.
walks up into your mosque, starts debating, you can say, "Hey, look, this is not the place for that." But if a preacher, a Nation of Islam
Well, he
guy,
considered himself a thought leader. That's what he said. This
yeah,
generation thought leader.
he consider himself a thought leader. That's a good point, and he's communicating things on the airwaves, so all of us to be able to hear. So yes, you're going to get Pete cross-examined. The man who presents his case first seems right to somebody else comes and cross-examines them. So he's got to realize that when he goes into open market and communicates his ideas as a thought leader, it's only right if you're going to be intellectually honest and have integrity that people cross-examine what you're saying, because you need to know what you're saying. You need to have your information peer reviewed. And then when you're communicating to the audience, when people hear it and they have questions or they think that there are some issues or contradictions, excuse me, you need to be able to reconcile those things, because how do we know what you're saying is true if you've never been tested? You notice there's thousands, if not millions, of Christian scholars and Christian lay people, or whatever you want to call them, and professors, all that kind of stuff, and people and preachers that are debating online and having conversations and doing university discussions and seminars on stuff. Same thing with Muslim people, same thing with Buddhist and Hindu people. I don't know if they really debate as much, but they have those things available to some extent. But you'll notice that Christianity specifically, more than all the other places, are definitely having intellectual discourse on their beliefs and why they believe what they believe and why you shouldn't believe other things, which helps enrich everybody, because you're getting to hear the ideas side by side. And when ideas come together, you get closer to the truth. You get closer to what makes sense, because people have to be more consistent and think about what they're saying and see their errors where they maybe had a blind spot before. So it could be a cop out in a lot of ways. Whenever you say, I'm not going to debate. I'm not going to debate. But again, that's also a part of their religious beliefs. You're never really going to see Nation of Islam people out there debating like that, because again, they don't really have a real religion. If they're debating, Muslims going to attack them, and how's it going to look if you Nation of Islam and you're debating a Muslim? I thought both of you, for most, the average person going to be like, I thought both of y'all was Muslims. Now you look crazy because people finding out, oh, they don't mess with y'all like that. You know what I'm saying? They ain't rocking with y'all. So how are you Muslim if they are? You see what I'm saying? And then you're quoting the Bible all the time, but the Christians are saying that what you're saying is not biblical and not how you exegete the text. And then I'm seeing that what they're saying the text says is what Christians have been saying the text says for thousands of years. What you're saying, it says, I don't see anybody else saying it until like the 1960s, 1970s. You see what I'm saying? So when that stuff starts to happen, you start to get exposed. That's why those of you who are Volks and believe in the scientific method, you believe in peer review. You believe in the test of falsifiability. In the book of Acts, the Bible, Paul called the Bereans the most noblest of the Jews. And you got to think about that. There's so many reasons you might call somebody noble. Somebody was very courageous. Somebody was helping people. Somebody was given to the homeless or the poor. There's a lot of reasons why you might call somebody noble, right? The reason why Paul calls the Bereans the most noble is because they were searching the scriptures to see if what Paul the apostle was teaching was true. So if you want to be the most noble, all of you folks out there, research, study, learn, is what this man is saying true. And if he's not willing to debate, if he's not willing to go on the big platform and have those discussions, they debated in Acts 15 in the Bible. They debated at Areopagus. They debated numerous times in the scriptures. They debate in politics and Congress now. You can go to any university or college, and I'm sure you stick around long enough, you're going to see a debate. On Sports Center, they debate the beliefs of LeBron and Michael Jordan, and you get more enriched information because the guys are debating and putting their side. They challenge each other to be better. Iron sharpens iron, right? And so when people are saying, like, I'm not going to be debating, I'm not going to go on that platform, it's because you don't want to get exposed. And I don't mean just him in particular, because maybe that's not really his thing. It is his thing because he calls himself a thought leader. And you watch him on different shows attacking people's beliefs, and he'll feign unity and, I'm all for all brothers, but then say, you got guys out here talking about this, but it's really this. You're contradicting people on the big platforms on social media. But if they want to have that conversation and have that debate with you, you bow out. That's not respectable. Now, we're not talking about somebody who just stays in their lane, builds their cars, has their faith, and does what they do with their family and friends. This guy's out there communicating things to the public.
Yeah.
So you gotta be ready to at least defend what you said. We can move on.
Yeah, and that's the important. And people want to avoid arguing or debating, but debate has a lot of benefits, and this is why we're doing the show. Like I said, we advocates for critical thinking. Debates help you develop your critical thinking skills, and actually help grow your confidence. Build your confidence at a certain poise. You see, when I see Christians debating, Muslims debating, and to the point, I don't see a lot of Nation of Islam guys debating, but I do see a lot of people of the Islamic faith debating.
More so now than ever, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're late to the party, but now you're starting to see them do that.
Yeah. So especially if you want to be a leader, and you made a good point when you say he's attacking people's beliefs. Just the white Jesus is just insinuating that, hey, you got a white Jesus tatted on you, you believe in a white God.
Yeah. And even the stuff he's saying, every time he says, we'll debate religion later, let's focus on oppression. Not all religions believe that we're being oppressed right now. The Buddhist belief is that the end of all desire is the end of all suffering. You suffer because you desire things. If you just stop desiring things, you don't suffer anymore. So why would you desire liberation? So you're contradicting the Buddhist beliefs right there.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So if you're going to be communicating what you believe, you're by definition contradicting other beliefs that are out there that are different than your own. So my point is saying that there's no way to escape it. So when they pretend to be, we're all brothers and stuff like that, we don't got to debate religious stuff. What they're really saying is, I'm going to get my licks in, just don't hit me back.
Yeah.
You remember when Charles Barkley was holding back Larry Bird and Dr. J was stealing off on him?
Mm-hmm.
That's what the Nation of Islam guys are doing. They're Charles Barkley. They want to hold us back while they get their licks in.
Yeah, man.
Not what they do. And the thing about Muslims is we believe in Yahweh. We believe in Jesus, right? Chapter 19, verse 19 is one of the first times it talks about the birth of Christ in the Holy Quran. And when I think about Christ consciousness, of course, we have different interpretations of things, right? But I think about when a person ascends to that level to where they're in complete alignment with that higher consciousness. And what we don't see oftentimes is, yes, Yahweh, I am. What we don't see a lot of times is you don't see a lot of like Christians and Jews having these kind of conversations. And the reason we don't is because in psychology, when things are familiar, there's a fear of replacement. So there's this narcissism that happens within Islam and Christianity, right? Where Black Muslims and Christians want to go fight their Christian brothers and Muslims want to fight, right? Or Christians want to fight their Muslim brothers and Muslims want to fight their Christian brothers. We just go back and forth and argue, all while someone else is.
What's your thoughts on the Christ consciousness?
So before I get to the Christ consciousness part, which I want to get to that point, but real quickly, I want to address what he said last, because that's fresh in my mind, is he talks about when the Muslims are debating the Christians. Notice he's not talking about himself. So, and he's doing that because he's not a Muslim and he's not Christian, but people think that they're Muslim. So he's saying when the Muslims fighting the Christians, no, they're keeping themselves out of it. He's like, we're not getting involved with that. We're not even debating religion and getting all that stuff. It's you got these other groups over here fighting, but I thought you were Muslim. So are you part of the fighting or are you not part of the fighting? Are you in step with your group or are you out of step with your group? That's the part that's not being really communicated. So when he's saying stuff like that, it's him separating himself from Muslim and Christian, because he's not either one of them. And he's saying that they're fighting. And now go to your point about the Christ consciousness. He recognized, of course, his interpretation is not a standard or orthodox interpretation. This Christ consciousness stuff is, again, like I said, my first experience with Nation of Islam guys, them using scripture and then twisting them to suit their own purposes, using them metaphorically in ways that
ambiguous,
in ways the author had no intention of it being used. And so what's happening when he says Christ consciousness, what does that even mean? Now people are gonna be like, you don't know what that means. You gotta open your third eye, brother. But the reality is that Christ consciousness, the conscience of Christ was spreading the gospel message. It was repent, for the kingdom of God is at hand. Christ has died on the cross for the sins of his people. And if you repent and put faith in him, you will have everlasting life and not suffer death. You won't suffer the wrath of God for your sin. And your debt's been paid. That's what the message of Christ's consciousness is. Him coming to earth and suffering, taking on the form of a servant, and then being unjustly crucified and then resurrecting. He suffered. The Bible calls Jesus a man of suffering. You see what I'm saying? And so that's not what you see from these guys right here. They're saying, hey, look, we shouldn't be suffering at all. We need to get, we need to get rid of the oppressor and get our liberation, because we need to be ruling this earthly kingdom here. And that's not the message of Jesus. Jesus said, give what belongs to Caesar to Caesar. He didn't say for us to overthrow the government. Now, the important thing about this is Christianity did end up overthrowing the government, the Roman Empire. It took 300 something years, but they did it not through the sword. They didn't do it through, fighting the oppressors. They did it through, they spread the gospel messages wide and as far as it could. And eventually the guy who ended up being in charge, his mother was a Christian. And then he said he had a vision. Whatever happened with that, my point is saying that they eventually, and then that religion, without using the sword, end up taking over the world.
You shall inherit.
From slaves and merchants to presidents, 2,000 years later.
Started from 12.
Most powerful empires, whether it was the UK or, back in the day, or you're talking about America now, even Germany, at one point in time had the most richest theology. A lot of the theologians you hear about in the past were German. And so my point is saying that the most powerful nations that have erected themselves in the last 100 years, Christian nations. And what I mean to say that is that it was spread. I'm not saying it was never spread by the sword at different points in time in history, but it definitely wasn't spread by the sword for the first 300 and something years. It was spread through love, through sacrifice, through adopting. Christians will go and adopt children that were unwanted in those different civilizations and say, we'll take them, we'll take care of them. Spreading love, taking care of the people who couldn't take care of themselves, the meek inheriting the earth. So when you talk about we need to rule and with power, for Christians, we're just aliens passing through. People go, oh, that means that Christians aren't doing anything on the earth right here and now. They're so focused on the future and what's not on this earth. They're not doing anything on here.
I used to say that.
You used to say that. Trust me, I won't call you out, but I remember that.
Yeah, I was like, I remember that just the context for the audience. We would be talking, and this was in the height of, maybe like 10 years ago, maybe 12 years, when the police shootings it was everywhere. CNN, Fox News, any social media, any news outlet, you were seeing these things, right? And I remember talking to Vulcan about this, and he was saying, and you made a good point now that from what I remember, he was like, some Christians, that's not not obligation, that's not their calling. They call might to be doing charity work. Some calling is just to help the women shelters and open,
foster
other
care programs, all of that kind of stuff.
And I remember thinking like, man,
no, they got to be out here stopping these police from beating us upside the head. It's like, so you want all the Christians to focus on 13% of the population when there's people suffering of all different people groups around the world, because people got to recognize, and this goes what I was saying before you made that excellent point, is that there's nobody that's done more work on this earth for people than Christians.
Yeah. Whether you're talking
about hospitals, you're talking about philanthropic, talking about science, talking about art, whatever category you want to put human advancement and achievement in, you're going to see Christian people at the top, or people that grew up within a Christian context or culture at the top. And that's not to say that there's not things you could point out that were done bad and stuff like that in the name of Christianity, the name of God, in the name of God and country and all that kind of stuff. We don't have to, I'm not going to split hairs on that, but I know people are going to be in the comments or on the internet later on saying, what about the Crusades and this? We can talk about all that stuff. I love those conversations. But for the meantime, what I'm focusing on is that when people make the claim that, Christians are so focused on the heavens, they're no earthly good. No. There's nobody that's done more good for earth than the Christians have. By a long shot, by a wide mile. So we can.
That's that's a good point, man. Oh, I want to read
I mean,
these comments.
even grandma and them at the local church. They got a kitchen in the back. They're giving out food. I know just when people that need rental assistance and stuff like that, they go to the churches and get that stuff. The government won't even give it to them half the time, and they go to church and get it. The church gives the people don't even go to the church.
Man,
I've seen it too many times in multiple different states, multiple different cities of all different ethnic groups and nationalities and races. Just giving it away.
I was thinking about when you said that the Christianity has no other religion has done more than Christianity.
Mhm.
And I was thinking about on that famous quote of the Marvel series when Thanos said that you can live without your failure.
Yeah,
And my
yeah.
mind went to like black people. We got to stop trying to search African spirituality. We don't have no foundation. They haven't built any. Historically, we haven't seen them build any institutions. We got to trust and investigate and focus on things like Christianity that have been vetted and put more energy into this religion.
That's a really good point. I just want to like maybe contextualize that a little easier.
That's what I was
sorry, go ahead.
No, I'll just make that point when you said you couldn't live with your own failure. It failed. All the spirituality practices in the past failed. It failed us, man. But go ahead.
And so I really want to just contextualize it because I even though I do think you make really good points there, it doesn't have to be this antagonistic relationship between us and the oppressor's religion or Christianity versus the African spiritualities and stuff like that. Because the reality is this: they all come from the same area.
Yeah,
it's not like it's the white man's religion versus the black man's religion. No. There was thousands of religions that people of color were practicing. And there were hundreds of religions that these white people were practicing around the world at different points in history, from the Vikings to the Greeks to the Romans,
Zeus, Hercules,
yeah, all of these different things.
Mm-hmm.
Christianity started off the oldest churches in Ethiopia, so you don't have to see it as a white thing. That's really just shows a poor understanding of history to even consider it a white thing, a white religion. That's just poor understanding of history. So with that understanding right there, you don't have to see it as African spirituality versus the white man's religion, anything like that. They all come from the same area.
All right, I was going to read this. This comment says,
"We're going to the comments already. Go ahead. I thought you were okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to read one of them. Myself, being a Moorish American Muslim, would agree with bro. 19 Keys. Forget the debate. Let's uplift fallen humanity as we as we are instructed to do Islam. Let's forget the debate, man. But yeah, that's why I just wanted. That stood out to me. I was looking at these comments. All right, so we had. All right, here we go.
Running things around us, because I thought it was interesting that they put in a clip about Christian nationalists, and of course the young lady.
I'm gonna fast forward, bro.
Posing a question that I thought was pretty idiotic because I'm a little more studied than that. But the problem in America is Christian nationalists, right? Christian.
There you go.
Be more Christ-like. Be like Jesus. Jesus stood with the people in the streets. He stood against empire, and he stood with the revolutionaries. Most people operating on what Paul would do. Just have faith and that's enough. But it actually requires action. We're living in a time where we actually need to have a rebirth of this Black and this Christian alliance, where we figure out how to work together. The mosque, the churches, they need to all come together. They just made it legal for the
Pause it real
churches
quick.
and religion.
So he brings us 2 points. One, be like Jesus, don't be like Paul, right? But for those who understand Christian theology and the Bible itself, understand that there is no disagreement or a separation between what Paul was communicating and doing versus what Jesus was communicating and doing. Now, they both were following God, Jesus being God in the flesh and Paul following him. Jesus appeared to Paul and said, "Why are you persecuting me?" Paul was Saul. He was actually unaliving Christians at the time. And so my point is saying Jesus' mission was to go to the cross and be resurrected. So his path wasn't going to be identical to what Paul was doing. Paul is an example of a human striving to live like Jesus. So, and his mission is different. He was entrusted to go and spread the word to the whole world. And I'm sorry, I was going to focus on Jesus, but let me just get on Paul real quick. This is the thing, and this is no offense to 19 keys, but I think he's a key short because he didn't get this key point. And what I want to say is this: how dare you try to critique what Paul did? Most of what we have of Christianity is due to Paul.
The letters,
outside of Jesus, the letters that spread, no man worked harder than Paul. You know what I'm saying? In his writings, our Constitution, the democracy we have today, all that is harkening back to Paul. Paul, and Martin Luther building off of Paul historically. Paul's writings are going to live forever. We're going to forget about Vulcan one day. We're going to forget about 19 keys one day. We're never going to forget about Paul. Paul gave it all to serve Christ. So when he's saying don't be Paul focused on faith, that faith literally made it around the entire world and left an imprint that no other being and entity has ever left on this earth. People have to understand it. It's the biggest religion. It's everywhere. There's Christian missionaries going to every country, being persecuted in certain communist places, being persecuted over here, being all kinds of different things going on right now in the name of Christianity. And Paul was one of the was one of the main figures of that, of all the apostles. So when he says don't be like Paul, if you can get anywhere close to what Paul did by using faith to move mountains, and Paul didn't just move mountains. Paul moved continents, tectonic plates. So he's really severely underestimating Paul by saying, don't be Paul, do this. All the different organizations, charitable organizations, and things that you appreciate about this world have a thankfulness they need to have for Paul. Ultimately, always for Jesus Christ, his God in the flesh. And when now I had to deal with the Paul. Now the greater point dealing with Jesus is he's saying, oh, Jesus was with the rebels and with the common people and he was fighting against the oppressors. That's not true. That's just not true. Jesus didn't buck the Romans at all. Even when he had a right to, he didn't buck the Romans at all. That was the power. Now, and the Jewish leaders, he said, listen to what they say, be careful of what they do. He was a rabbi, he taught. He was a religious leader himself. The people followed him. So when he's talking about Jesus and him being with the rebels and stuff, that's not true. Now, because his stand was for truth and people were opposing truth, opposing Christ, opposing God, then that made them rebels in the eyes of those people. But they were really rebelling against God. The real rebels were those who were fighting against Christ. That was the rebellion to God. So we have to understand when he's saying that he fought with it, that's him trying to make Jesus another Nation of Islam guy. That's not the case.
Christ consciousness.
Yeah, the Christ consciousness. No, that's not what you would see. He was telling the people that my kingdom is not of this world. Nation of Islam is saying the kingdom is of this world. We need to rule this world. We need to uproot our oppressors and we can get liberated and us insert ourselves and install ourselves the new oppressor class. So we will rule and we will rule. And they're telling us this option. We'll rule with unity. We'll rule with all these kind of things they're going to say when they're no different than people that's in power now. People got to think about that. When you think, oh, the oppressor, we got to liberate. If you take the oppressors out of their position and you put whoever you like in them places, because you got to put them in a lot of places because it's not just one seat. You got to fill a lot of seats. There's going to be treachery. There's going to be deceit. How do you think what do you think is happening over there in Africa right now? They're dealing with the same problems. If you put the Nation of Islam in charge, you put me and Enos in charge, it's going to be trash.
Yeah, because you don't have a lot to go off of to say if you're going to be successful or not. What can we go off of?
Yeah, I'm probably joking. It wouldn't be trash. My point is saying it's going to be human. It's going to be flawed. So it's not like whoever takes the place of the current oppressors or whatever the case may be were guaranteed some type of utopia. It could very well be worse, and more than likely probably would be worse. So my point is just saying, don't let these people beguile you with their speech and promising you, these ivory tower hope that if they were in power and you could whatever whatever they're saying, that your life would be better. You still got to pay your tax. You still have to pay your taxes. And then there's a good case to be made that whenever Muslims, even though they're not real Muslims, whenever Muslims are ruling, things typically are less free. If you go to Muslim-ruled countries right now, you have less freedom. Now, again, these guys aren't real Muslims, so who knows how they would actually. They're really Americans. You know what I'm saying? They do everything that we do. They're Americanized people. That don't really have a real religion other than the cult that they're a part of. So who knows how they would really rule? There's a lot about Minister Farrakhan that I appreciate. I've learned from the man. I think he's a tremendous speaker, very brilliant, very sharp guy, very disciplined man. A lot of great things I can say about this guy, but they're still a part of a cult. We can continue.
Yeah, I just want to say that looking at Jesus as rebel and looking at Paul as being passive, that's what it sounds like he's framing Paul as a passive guy. We have a misunderstanding what meek is. Meek is a level of restraint, of power, and Paul was definitely operating that. He could have just, what the young folks said, crash out, but
he was crashing out before he became a Christian.
Yeah, actually was. Yeah, that's a good point. He was deleting a lot of Christians before. Yeah, that's a good point. So we got to stop looking at meek as that's voluntary strength. It's not weakness. So to look at the way he's framed it, oh, Jesus was a rebel and Paul is people want to do things the way Paul was doing. For some reason, our culture, we gravitate more to the rebel, probably because the context of our past with slavery, but is wisdom in you have to have wisdom in your decision, especially when you lead a group of people. And that's not, you studied the gospel, you didn't see Jesus do that. That wasn't a goal to take over empires. That's what the Pharisees was upset with Jesus about when you read the New Testament.
Yeah, he said, give what belongs to Caesar.
Yeah. All right, let's get to what we had. What was the times?
You can just let it play because he's getting ready to go into the next point.
All right, let's go ahead.
Religious institutions to legally be able to back a politician. That means that they can get political all they want to. So it's no reason not to. We are also in a 100-year anniversary.
Go ahead and pause it real quick.
All right.
And I'm not going to be long because we already pretty much covered this point. But again, he says that now that churches are allowed to get more political and back politicians and stuff like that in the way they weren't before. I'm not aware of the legislation. I know what he's referring to, but I'm just going to assume it's true because he's a sharp guy. And I don't think he would say it if it wasn't, as far as something that could be easily Googled. So with this topic right here, he says, so there's no reason not to. There is good reason not to. That's one way of alienating people when you're a Christian backing certain political parties and stuff like that, because the lines get blurred. Did God tell you to back that person? Then you have people saying, God told me Trump, or God told me Obama, or something like that starts to happen. And now your religion is turning into a cult with this political figurehead. So I'm not saying that Christians can't be involved in politics. Obviously they can, and clearly they are. But I want people to understand that that's not the Christian message, the gospel message. The gospel message is and the message of the Christian is to spread the gospel, the good news. Just like back in whenever Christ was first, crucified and resurrected, the Christians were spreading the message when it was illegal to be a Christian. That's what they were doing. They weren't trying to make it legal. They didn't try to make it legal to be a Christian.
Yeah.
They were being persecuted, and they were spreading the word for salvation for everybody else. Same thing with this context right here. The church's primary focus is the spreading and the proclamation of the gospel. So unlike what 19 Keys is saying, the key to this, because he's a key short, is that Christians believe we discuss religion now. We discuss spirituality now. We'll focus on earthly stuff as we go. But the primary focus is we're aliens passing through. And we are a part of a kingdom that is not on this earth. Again,
hey, you know what?
Nobody's done more good than the church has on this earth, but this is not our home. Go ahead.
And to add to your point, you remember when Thomas Jefferson put in the Constitution to separate church and state,
Mhm.
even the practitioners, people that was practicing Christianity, they didn't want to be affiliated with that either. And he had to explain, like, no, it's not. We're just gonna let y'all do what y'all have to do. We're just not going to intervene. But I know people was weird. That's where they was weary about when Thomas Jefferson actually was advocating that to be in the Constitution.
Yeah, it was the
But
Baptist
it
and the
goes to your point.
Congregationist church. They didn't want to be persecuted. So the separation
Mhm.
of church and state, for those who may not be aware of it, was really a conversation between religious parties where they say, "Hey, we'll back you, but just put it in the Constitution that y'all can't come after us later on because people got to remember the Americas were fleeing persecution. That's what
Yeah,
was going on, and so they didn't want to be persecuted over
pilgrims.
here. So they wanted
Mhm.
in writing, like, hey, look, y'all can't don't put the sword with the Bible because then y'all can attack us if you don't like what we're saying.
Mhm.
And so that's when they said, hey, let's separate this. It was the religious people who said, let's separate these two things. It wasn't people who are not religious going, hey, don't put your religion in my life. That's what you believe. It was religious people talking to other people that are religious saying, hey, look, no one religion gets to have the government.
Mm.
Freedom of expression, freedom of praise. That's what was going on with that.
All right, let's get to the next segment. 10-minute mark. All right, here we go.
Between the youth and the elders, and how we need to focus on collective thinking. So I know the post may have been about, getting me to go back and forth on religion, but honestly, if y'all want to know the truth about 19 Keys, I don't care. The best religion is to treat people how you want to be treated. It's the golden rule. It's found in all the books. I don't care about debating someone on who's right or wrong. Our good brother Billy Carson had a debate with a
Pause it real
white
quick.
Christian scholar.
I want Nabi to say that part by itself too, to address this part. But when he says, truth is, I don't care. I want everybody to understand that when you're listening to this guy communicating, he's saying, we'll worry about religion later. Let's focus on our, dealing with our pressure and stuff like that. It's not because they're just, wow, they just caught up into the, new age relativism and all roads lead to Rome. And, we're not going to waste petty discussion time on the nuances of religion, who's right, who's wrong, who knows. Let's just all get along. That's not why he's saying that. It's his religious belief that stuff doesn't matter. Again, they're a cult of multiple religions. So they don't have a one religion they're going off of. So that's why they're just staying consistent with how they were founded. We got a bunch of different religious beliefs. None of them are really true. They're all somewhat true. We use them as we need to accomplish whatever goals we want to accomplish. We believe in God. God was a man. God was a black man. And so that's how they do their movement. So when they're saying those things, it's because they're speaking from that perspective. People need to understand that. So that's why he doesn't care. He does not that he doesn't care because he's just a great guy. He doesn't care because their religion teaches them not to debate about religion because they don't really have one. They're a cult of bigger religions.
All right.
And they considered him to lose that. And after that, the whole Christian world emerged against him. He's the false Messiah. He's this.
Go back a little bit to where it first
He
brings
went a
up
whole
the Carson thing.
And they considered him to lose. Carson had a debating someone on. I don't care about debating someone on who's right or wrong. Our good brother Billy Carson had a debate with a white Christian scholar, and they considered him to lose that. And after that, the whole Christian world emerged against him. He's the false Messiah. He's this. They was at him. He went a whole entire tour. I took down the great Billy Carson. And then there was a bunch of people saying, well, actually, you was wrong as well. And I used to think about it. I used to say, man, debates are interesting because it's about who's more right at that moment.
So the Billy Carson thing, we covered this on the show already. And with all this stuff that's being discussed here, we got to understand that everything's not weighted the same. Obviously, in the Billy Carson and Wes Huff debate, Billy Carson wasn't prepared for it. But the reason why it went viral the way it did is because Billy Carson was spreading misinformation on numerous big platforms. He started to communicate his normal spiel, and then he happened to be talking to somebody that asked him the right question. The guy, it wasn't really a debate. They didn't really have a debate. So when he's talking about debate right now, they didn't really have a debate. Billy Carson didn't debate Billy Westhuff. Me and you watched it together. There was no debate. There was no cross-examination. There was no rebuttals going. Say, I forgot what the book he was referring to, the Bible. I can't remember what it was. Anyways, he was like, "You talking about this one, right? You talking about this one right here? Mount Sinai, the Sinai Bible." That's what he was talking. Yeah, he kept saying Sinai Bible. You talking about this one right? I got this one right here, and you're saying it says this, and he goes, "Yeah," and he goes, "Oh, that's not in there." And the guy, and Billy Carson goes, "Oh, well." That was the exchange. He just helped him correct him some information. Now it went viral because he had been communicating that on so many different platforms. It was embarrassing.
Yeah, and then he quoted another book. He said that West said that's a known forgery that you quoting on all these platforms.
Yeah, that's a known forgery. And so the thing about that is, whenever he was communicating that information, there wasn't a debate. It wasn't like a gotcha moment or what the case may be. So what he has to understand is that just because somebody calls me out, like I might say something on this video or on other videos that's incorrect, and if somebody were to call me out and say that, hey, that wasn't correct, it's not the end of the world. That's why this show is focused more on critical thinking skills than it is about some fact check. Because anybody can do that. We don't need a show to do that. You can just be all sit on our AIs and get our, and it's going to list the resources. We can just go to the sources, but that's not going to help us to think more critically. That's not going to help us to be less lazy when it comes to employing our reasoning skills. So we can fix incorrect information. And it is important to have accurate information, but it's more important that you know how to reason. So when you're listening to something or you're reading something, you know how to process it properly. You know how to filter out the sophistry.
Yeah, that's why I said at the beginning, help you separate the sophist from the philosopher and rhetoric from logic.
Let's get it.
Not who's actually correct. Right? Because in a debate, you really got to be prepared to defend your point. But it's not about truth. Similar to in the courtroom, who can put up the best argument? Who can make the best defense? And so Christians and Muslims have debates all the time. Just because you win that debate in a moment don't mean you actually right, because somebody of superior knowledge can make you seem like a fool as well. And that's what we go back and forth. Growing up, they used to call it intellectual masturbation. We're just trying to get off on whoever seems like they the most right. If you understood, like I understood, that they literally want to put you in physical and digital slavery. They don't have a plan for just Black Muslims or Black Christians. There's a plan for Black people. I don't remember ICE saying, which ones do you use, the Christians or Muslims?
Go ahead, fast forward this.
No, you're on the fast forward.
I remember Peter Thiel, he's a white Christian. He ain't trying to figure out, the techno-feudalists ain't trying to figure out, do we decipher between the Christians and Muslims? The greatest moment, I think, in Black history was...
You pause it right there.
If there was something that is...
So in this point right here, he's saying what a debate's about. And I get partly what he means by that, because people suck at debating typically. Yeah. And a lot of times it's about gotcha moments and stuff like that. But that's never meant to be the true heart of what a debate is. So don't look at a debate as two guys arguing and just talking over each other, interrupting each other and stuff like that. It can be simply an exchanging of ideas. Okay, so when you're saying that, what do you mean? Okay, they say person. So you're saying this, and this, and this. How do you reconcile that with this, and this? Okay, well, I never thought about that before. It's okay to get back to people when it comes to debate. It doesn't have to be a gotcha moment. Now, if you're on, YouTube and TikTok and doing debates and stuff like that, and you got people watching, people don't want to get embarrassed. That goes to any kind of debate. I've seen people almost get unalived for basketball games. I've seen two guys playing one-on-one basketball games, and somebody gets the better, somebody doing a crossover, and everybody's like, ooh, and the guy's like, hey, don't get this guy popped. You see what I'm saying? That happens everywhere because men have egos and women have egos, and the people don't want to lose. People want to look better than they really are. But that's the fallen human nature. People can have a good spirited debate. I've seen hundreds of spirited debates that were good and fair minded. And somebody who has the right heart when it comes to debate, if they have a better point than you have, or they're able to prove that you're wrong about a particular thing, it may not mean you're wrong with your overall point. And you can always get back to people about certain things. I'm gonna get back to you on that. If it's not a gotcha moment kind of a thing, let me get back to you on that. That's a good question. I haven't thought about that. And we have to understand that the opposite is worse. Not debating anything, not having conversation, not being cross-examined is worse. Not debating is more not about truth. So we said debate's not about truth. It's like a court room or whatever. But not debating is more like not having truth, because in that situation, where's your peer review? Where's your cross-examination? How do you recognize your blind spots? When you have poor explanations that don't really explain what's going on, who points that out? An echo chamber is worse. Confirmation bias is worse than having a good debate. So I think that even though debates can be abused and misused, and sometimes they can be unproductive and unfruitful in some kind of ways, what's worse is to not have those conversations, to just stay in your little box, your little echo chamber, and think the things you always thought while you're still teaching everybody else error.
Yeah. And the debate, and one of the good things that come out of debate, it gives you the ability to distinguish fact from opinion. Because obviously, we will listen to him now. He's teaching. He's saying a lot of opinions. It's important for us to debate for teachers, and he consider himself a leader, man.
Thought leader, yeah.
Thought leader, bro. You got to test your ideas, man. You got to test your ideas. Your own ideas and beliefs. That's what the debate will bring that out of you. And when you debate somebody, if you do it, like I said, if you're highly skilled at it, or just skilled at it and know the fundamentals, it would encourage individuals to seek out and evaluate the evidence. So help you construct your arguments instead of just going on tangents, just talking. But actually, I think if he do debate more on religion, it would encourage him to consider alternative perspectives. And I don't think that's what he's doing. Old Nation Islam, they'll do that. They're in their own bubble and they go out and teach.
I didn't take my allergy pill today.
Yeah, take that. Yeah, so that's all I wanted to say about debate. Like that enables a lot of good things and challenge you.
But yeah, we can keep going.
Let's go.
Inspired people, I think Jesus would have loved it. He would have seen all those people together for the focus of coming together in atonement in a peaceful manner, treating each other as brothers and sisters with love and respect. Man, that would have made Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, right? And Jesus shed a tear.
No, but pause that.
I do want to say some more about just personal. I did, and I'm familiar with like the kids. I listen to a lot of stuff. I like he had the headbands he used to sell. I like his entrepreneur spirit. That was pretty good. I think what I'm trying to say. Yeah, I like the way he talks about the entrepreneurship. But this is what I'm saying. So I used to listen to him. I didn't search for him, but it would be on my feed and my algorithm. So that's why I noticed you would listen to a lot of these guys that speak, but not be challenged. Once I start seeing some of these guys get challenged, what was a good debate? Maybe somebody like a Tariq Nasheed debating comedian Andrew Schultz. That was good to see. Seeing Tariq on, what's that guy name? They call him Bakun all the time. I can't remember his name. Jesse Peterson. That was a good exchange. If you go watch that, they'll see Jesse really stand firm and asking Tariq certain questions. That's when I would encourage people, if you are searching for truth, look out or seek out videos. These guys their ideas are actually being challenged.
Yeah,
it should be a red flag if they're not doing it. It's I'm not gonna say should. It is a red flag.
It's no different than sports. Guys talk. I mean, coming up, we play sports. Guys talking big like they're the best, And some people guys are better selling it than others. But when they get on the court, they gotta be able to show it. If they put them on spades, put them on dominoes, talk about tennis or ping pong, whatever it is. Whenever it comes time to show it, you got to show it by proving you're better than the people that are around you. If you're going to claim you're the best, if you're going to claim that you're right, you're the truth, that you put the most work in, that you're the most skilled, whatever it is, you got to eventually have to show up. And what happens is guys, because they don't want to lose, they shoot themselves in the foot, because what's happening is you go so long without debating anybody like Billy Carson does. And when you finally do have a conversation, a very light conversation, he would have got slaughtered by Wes Huff in a real debate. But people who don't understand the scientific method, don't understand the basics of epistemology, they look at Billy Carson and go like, oh, that dude's sharp. This dude can demolish somebody. Then he gets, in a debate with a guy half his age almost. You see what I'm saying? There's way more guys we could have got, Dr. James White, Norman Geisler. So there's guys who is way more experience in that world than Wes Huff is. But the thing is, he got a young, up-and-coming guy who's not nearly as experienced as Billy Carson is at talking about these kind of things, and he got destroyed based on a few questions. And my point is saying, if you're constantly debating, then people develop more respect and you get better and better and better. If you never do it and then you finally end up in a situation where you're in a room with somebody that's asking you about what you believe, it might be an interviewer, it could be anything. Like you see Dame Dash, at the Breakfast Club interview, and props to him because he'll go in the line then and have those conversations. But so when Dame is acting wild, it's funny, it's interesting, but it's not that. But we don't remember Dame that way because Dame's always been debating and arguing people. You know what I'm saying? So he can't embarrass himself anymore when at his lowest moments. And in his highest moments, when he said, I see people defending Dame and like, this guy's a legend. He's done so much for the culture. Why are they don't treat the white guys that come on the show like that, but they're treating him like that. Other white entrepreneurs that come on there get a certain respect, but they file bankruptcy. But when Dame does it, he's being told he's broke. So he's getting defended because he's always been the lion's den of intellectual discourse, whether you like him or not. We've done shows on Dame Dash before. So we try to give a fair critique. I'm not here to defend him or to disparage him. I'm just saying that that's the thing. But if you go the whole time without debating and you finally have one, nobody's ever seen it, everybody's going to go to it. And you're going to be embarrassed because you don't have the skills for it. You're overwhelmed because of the fact that you don't have the stamina and the skill set to be able to navigate that kind of a conversation, which shows that you haven't really done your due diligence.
And it was hard. It was tough to watch when Billy Carson had that so-called debate and his behavior afterwards. The videos he was posted out, he was looking like a monster, man. It was really hard to watch. He took a lot of those videos down. Billy Carson
took a lot of those videos down because he started stunting on the poor and talking about how much money he had and all the kind of stuff. And it's like
suing everybody, lawsuits. It was bad, man. It was bad.
Dang, homie, he's your man, homie. Same thing with Lord Jamar with the
another person. Yeah,
Lord Jamar, when he debated that guy on the flat earth stuff. He never really had a real debate. He was saying he would kill Neil deGrasse Tyson in the debate. I thought that was laughable. Not even just because of the fact he's flat earth. That part aside, it's just the point of like Neil deGrasse Tyson has had debates, not to the level of professional debaters, but he's exchanged ideas and expressed disagreements with people who have the same beliefs as him and different beliefs than him and different platforms, whether it's on the Bill Maher show or whether it's talking about science or religion or whatever the case may be. He's had to have those dialogues, so he's more skilled in it, and he's a scientist, so he's used to peer review. That's why Terrence Howard was offended when he got the message from Neil deGrasse Tyson about his mathematical perspectives. And people aren't used to that world of cross-examination and having to be able to demonstrate what you're saying you believe. And 19 Keys and everybody out there has to understand that if you're going to go into the platform and you're going to teach, unless you're going to be a cult leader where you're going to just only have people around you that believe what you're telling them, then you're going to have to defend your ideas in the realm of ideas.
Yeah, and I want to encourage people that's on this noble quest for truth, and guys that do teach. I encourage y'all to debate, to have your thoughts and your beliefs up to a peer review, because it remind me of, it was personal with Lord Jamar. If you don't do this, you go so far in this type of thinking, you burn bridges, man. you ruin relationships, friendships, and me before we used to go into it, I used to get upset. And
I used to get big mad, as they say. As I
yeah,
said, big
man,
mad.
just getting upset, just having my ideas challenged, because really, truthfully, my ideas and my worldviews wasn't stable. Like I said in the beginning, it was built on a lot of fallacious reasoning
What
and
does the Bible
logical
say?
reasoning.
A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways.
Yes, sir. So, and a perfect example, not just me, I noticed that with Lord Jamar. He ended his relationship with Godfrey because of what? His ideas being challenged to the point that he reacted in an irrational way and stopped the friendship,
Yeah, and he
and
was so embarrassed, he just decided to destroy his friendship. And that's the
Mhm.
other part of it too. A lot of this stuff is character. It's not just ignorance. This stuff is
There you go.
character.
Yeah.
These guys' character shows. Billy Carson character showed
Hmm.
whenever he got exposed. And it's not because he lost the debate, y'all. We all will lose debates.
Yeah.
Christians lose debates, Muslims lose debates, Hebrews lose debate. Everybody can lose a debate. That doesn't mean you're right or you're wrong. You can lose the debate because you say the wrong thing, or because you make a bad point. You're still, all these different things can happen. But the reality is this is what is your character? It's like playing sports. You got to be a good sportsman.
Yeah.
When Kobe Bryant airballed that shot because his legs were weak, and he was a young in the NBA. People said, "Hey, how did that? Were you embarrassed?" All that kind of stuff, and he was like, "I wasn't embarrassed at all. I just thought to myself, I got to get my legs stronger."
Hmm.
You see what I'm saying? And you
Yeah.
can take that mindset into this thing. Now, sometimes in your debate, you realize I'm actually wrong, because debates are good because they're very individual based. So if me and Enos are debating about something, he has his own reasons why he doesn't believe what I believe and why he believes what he believes, right? And somebody could believe what Enos believes, but for different reasons. So those debates can look different, because the reason why Enos says he believes what he believes and doesn't believe what I believe is going to be different than somebody else who has the same belief as him, but believes in that belief for a different reason and doesn't believe what I'm saying for a different reason. So in the conversation, it's possible that he may move me more to his side, I may move him more to my side, and the same thing with the other person, but the conversation sounds very different.
Hmm.
And so they're very individualized. So you could be dialoguing with somebody and you change your mind. Like, I never thought about it like that before. Actually, I don't think that I hold to that belief anymore, whether it's about sports or science, whatever it is. And pretty much everything you enjoy in life, from laptops to cell phones
Hmm.
to homes, are being discussed and debated. In the book, Jim Collins' book, From Good to Great, talks about the best companies. What they do, they debated. They had fierce debates at the table. In the book of Acts, it said a sharp dispute broke out from among them. All the great religions and organizations have debates and discussions because you want the best idea to win.
Yeah, we got, and I experienced this too. Like I said, as far as certain relationships and burning bridges, you have to the person that fails, you control that narrative how you want to process that. Meaning, you can take the opportunity, like Vulcan just said it with Kobe. You take the opportunity to grow and learn, and just humble yourself. And a lot of us sometimes when we go through debates have ideas challenged. We don't want to go through that process because we don't understand we have the power to control that narrative and actually get better at um, how we view certain things.
Yeah,
So
and don't marry the lie. If you're
yeah,
debating with somebody or having a conversation with somebody, you realize you're wrong. And that's to 19 Keys brings up a really good point about the psychological effects of our beliefs and stuff like that. You get into cognitive dissonance
yeah,
where your beliefs are being your deep held beliefs are being
yeah,
contradicted, and it makes you feel real funny. And so he
yeah.
is right about that part.
That's true.
But that could be a momentary thing if your heart's in the right place. I may experience cognitive dissonance for a moment, and I pray about it, or I talk to somebody else about it, or I just meditate and think, and I go, you know what? Why am I so discomforted because somebody exposed something that was not true that I was holding to? I don't want to hold on to the false. I want to hold on to what's true. So I really should be thanking that person, and that person
Yeah,
need to ask better questions in the future.
that's what I
So
said.
you can
Thank you, man.
approach it different ways.
That's all I got to think about God Vulcan, man. Appreciate that, man.
Yes, sir.
Your patience helped me, reevaluate my cognitive abilities, reevaluate my worldview, man. And I mean, we're here today. that's why I'm signed up to do this show, man. Appreciate that, bro.
Yes, sir. We can keep going.
Mm-hmm.
The king would have been like, "Oh, I see the mountaintop." Malcolm X, that's right, brother.
Or we can go to the. Oh yeah, I think I was about to say.
And so I
he's
think
saying that Jesus would have endorsed the
we're
Million Man
probably most
March.
likely just in.
No, Jesus would not have endorsed the Million Man March.
Why?
I'm suspicious of whether Martin Luther King would have supported it, and I don't want to get into King's theology, but I would just say that I don't know if he would actually support the Million Man March. But it's talking about atonement and stuff like that. There was a very religious element to the Million Man March. Not to say that it wasn't good in a lot of ways. A lot of people, white and black, supported the Million Man March from all different kind of religions. But remember that because their religion is earthly, their version of atonement is earthly too. So we can't look at atonement. They're just using a religious word in a non-religious way to show how spiritual this event is. These black people these white people are standing arm in arm and walking to show unity and stuff like that. No, that's their religion why they're doing that. Because their religion is earthly. So that atonement, they're not metaphorically using atonement. That's what atonement is for them, is that event. And so a good case we made, Christians shouldn't even participate in that.
It was a lot of pastors that was down there. It said there was so many people there that traffic was backed up for hours. From what I heard, there's a lot of churches that support it. It was a lot of people up there.
Yeah, I'm not saying people should or shouldn't have supported. My point is just saying that there's a good case that could be made that Christians should not have been a part of that Million Man March because of the religious significance to the Nation of Islam. To us, it was just him, people speaking religiously. And at that time, in their defense, people really didn't know what they believed. Again, this religion is kind of like Mormonism in the sense of when a Mormon, person comes to you, they don't tell you they believe that Jesus and Satan are brothers, or you got to wear funny underwear, that blacks, can be a priest at one point in time in history, so they were going to lose their tax, free status and stuff like that historically. They're not going to tell you those things at the door. They're going to say, hey, pray you got a good feeling. Let me tell you about this wonderful message. They're going to use Christian language, even though the Mormon religion didn't exist before the 1800s. So they're going to do those kind of things. They're not going to tell you their more bizarre, hard to believe beliefs, at the very beginning. Same thing with these people right here. People really didn't know what the Nation of Islam believed like that back then, the first Million Man March. People didn't really understand it or know. So you're just seeing, black men who seem to be pretty devout. They're calling themselves Muslim. And you're going, okay. I mean, they dress nice. They're smart. They're disciplined men, and they're Muslim. They're Abrahamic. We have some commonality there. They don't realize they're a cult of Islam and they're black separatists. And so their ideology, what Martin Luther King is saying, let's, deliver on the promissory note that we're all, we all should be treated equal under this Constitution here. They're going, we need to separate it and be self-sufficient.
Yeah, but that's
really didn't understand that was their religious belief at the time. They didn't understand that part. Oh, who we got here? Master Bates.
What's up, my guy, Master Bates? What's up, man?
Shifu.
I can hear you if you speak.
Got the Malcolm X glasses on. Oh, look, baby. Yeah. He took the Nation of Islam thing a little far, didn't he?
What's up, bro?
Training day black on.
I'm getting my audio right with the Bluetooth.
All right. Yeah, but why you getting your audio? Yeah, so that's the danger of the over simplified, over exaggerated. I don't want to say I forgot. Always generalizing the oppression. So 95, that was like what he said 30 years ago. Dang, I didn't realize it was that long ago. So back then, our people, you hear somebody that's talking about oppression, fighting against the disadvantages we have as a people, it's going to draw a lot of people in, and we don't really know. Like you said, we don't know what they actually believe because we under the same umbrella that we are being attacked. So I think that they used that as leverage and was able to attract a lot of our people.
Yes, sir. Let's go. You playing it, or are you going to the next timestamp?
He's loved and
This the
beloved.
next time step right here.
Okay.
Rewind it.
He's loved and beloved. But I think we get so much into semantics, so many into these angles, so many into perspectives that we miss the point of religion in the first place. It's to get man in alignment with self, the highest self, getting man in alignment with God. It's not to create debates and problems and conflicts and issues. And a people that's at war with the world can't afford to be at war with each other. It's a lose-lose battle.
So yeah, let's go ahead and pause that real quick. Y'all have anything you want to say about that? So yeah, I'll go ahead and go, and if y'all have anything, just let me know. But yeah, he says people miss the point of religion. So his whole point is saying, look, let's focus on getting, being liberated and getting out from under our oppressors and ruling the world. Then we'll get to talk about religion. But again, you gotta understand they're not real Muslims and they're not Christians. So they don't have a religion to get to at some point in time. They believe that Allah was a man. And so when you're looking at it from that perspective, and he said, they're missing the point of religion. The point of religion is a religious conversation. So you can stay on this show, the point of religion, but I can't debate you on. I can't discuss that with you. I can't question, where'd you get the point of religion? Did your professor in college teach you that? Did your parents teach you that? Did you get it from a religious book? Because the point of religion is a religious question. You know what I'm saying? So what you mean to say is 19 Keys is going to talk about religion on this earth, and I'm going to get my licks in on all other religions, but I'm not going to debate with you on it right now. That's a pretty good scheme. Right. That's a very convenient scheme. And so when he's communicating those kind of messages about the point of religion, and that's not the point of religion. Different religions have different points. There's probably been thousands of religions on this earth, and they don't agree on what the point is. Why should we accept your point of religion? The Bible doesn't teach us the point of religion. It's for us to get knowledge of self. Quite the opposite. The Bible's perspective is to get knowledge of God. That's the highest form of knowledge. And so, again, he's in direct contradiction to the Christian message. And he only can get away with that because a lot of people don't know what they believe. They think that they're Muslims that just dress funny.
Yeah.
So yeah. I think people got to understand. Sorry, go ahead, Mr. Bates.
Can you pronounce my name?
Say it again.
Can you pronounce my name right?
Mr. I'm giving you respect, Mr. Bates.
No, that ain't the name, Playboy.
I said, call me Master.
say it all together and say it fast.
Say it fast.
You say the whole thing.
A pimp named Slickback. Say it.
You say the whole thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, what's crazy about this topic, and I am just coming in, is I did evangelism for Christianity probably 10, 12 plus years, and one of the main things that always would break people down, whether you're a Black Hebrew Israelite, whether you're from the Nation of Islam, whether you're just some Black Panther or some religious group that didn't really have any real foundation in religion and God, was really just the fact of the gospel. I used to call it the justice dilemma. And a lot of times it would break past all of the sophicism, or break past a lot of just the weak logic, and just really confronting somebody with, how is it possible that you can stand, or a God could call himself just, and let someone who has sinned or broken his law free, without he himself being unjust. And that would always break past all of, the brainwashing techniques, all that stuff. And so that, to me, that's why I ultimately chose Christianity over Islam, over many different religions out there, because none of them actually dealt with it. And when you really confront them with it, they start seeing how their logic, their faith in, just Blackness, or whatever ethnicity they have, just breaks down, And so I say facts on all that. Yours truly masturbates.
Yeah. So what we got now? You know, is where we at.
Yeah. We are at, what is it, 14? Okay, here we go. There we go.
Day about the gang truce in Chicago. The reason that I got connected to that, and it's funny, the reason I even spoke in Chicago, Sabina Church asked me to fly out there and come give a speech. And it was my Muslim brother, Luqman Muhammad, who connected me to the preacher out there so I can go speak to our people in the streets and walk with them and help their cause. And my brother Golden Child is in a movement called the Unity Movement. Black Muslims, Black Christians, right? Coming together to try to stop the violence, the abhorrent violence that's happening in the streets where we killing each other, where we used to go fight the system. We used to try to figure out how do we stop them from killing us. Now we trying to figure out how do we stop from killing each other. And it's indiscriminate violence. Christians killing Christians. That's the problem. And sometimes there's Muslims killing Christians and Muslims killing Muslims, but not because they're Muslim or Christian. Proximity, blood cycles, feuds, ignorance. And nobody talks about the net positive that Islam is happening on the gang culture in Chicago.
Any thoughts on Black Muslim having a net, you know, what he said? I took some notes on here. Oh, yeah, Black Muslims being a net positive.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about this, and this is at the heart of the issue. If you're going to say that, again, I don't want to debate about religion, let's just get free and then we'll discuss religion afterwards. How I would, the rubric I would use to measure whether it's a net positive or a net negative is going to be a spiritual one. But if we can't have the conversation now, how can I measure if you're a net positive and a net negative? What is my standard of good and bad? How do I measure it? That's a spiritual question. You can't measure good and bad and positive and negative in a test tube. You can't take it to court and do it in court. Those arenas don't tell us these kind of values. That's a spiritual question. When I'm thinking about, okay, what good are they doing? What potential harm are they doing? And does the good outweigh the bad? That's a spiritual question. And so when he's saying, let's discuss that later on, what are we going to do? Just take your word for it? That's why you can't wait till later on to discuss the spiritual implications of what we're doing and what religion really is, the foundation of truth. We got to discuss it now because we need that to discuss everything else. So that's why when he's talking about these points about, you know, what place religion has and those different kind of talking points, we have to recognize that he's saying that because his religion says that only what's happening on earth matters. When they say we'll talk about religion afterwards, they don't believe in it afterwards. That's why they're saying it. It's like somebody saying, let me hold something. I'll get you back later. You let them hold something, you don't never see them again. You know, one of our homeboys always say, if I owe you, you'll never be broke. Still ain't got that money.
Still ain't.
So yeah, go ahead.
Chicago. What a lot of brothers are thinking twice and wanting to change their ways. And going on a deen and praying salat. And finding another path of discipline outside of the streets. But because they don't follow who you want them to follow, you got a problem with that? That to me, I think is a sickness. That to me, I think is a sickness. Whether you can beat 19 Keys in a debate, you know what I mean, about religion, that shit don't matter. You win, matter of fact. I'll give you the win. But can you beat me in having an impact for our people? Because I'm out there with them brothers. I see the brothers that's locked up in prison and tell them how I'm helping change their life and they're in a more disciplined path. having a financial or spiritual, economic or physical impact. Can you beat me in that? That's the debate. Because I've been one of the most influential thought leaders of our generation. Beat me in that. Let's debate there. That's only. Debate with the actions of how we helping our people. Debate with who's being more like Christ. Who's being more like Jesus, not just who's following them or who's saying they follow him or who calls him God. To me, that don't matter. I think we got a sick culture. And I think our generation can do something different than what the old generation did, which is just debate about theology. I think we have already been through the revolution. We have all of the tools.
Let's pause it.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm gonna address the last part first because it's fresh in my mind. But what he's saying, one, he's speaking bad about the former generations that built what we have today. They went through much more hardship than we're going through now. Because again, they have to elevate their movement above any other movement that's ever existed. Because again, they're a new religion. They've only been around for not even 100 years, right? So because they haven't been around for more than 100 years, I think 1930 is when Elijah Muhammad met, what was his name, Wallace Ford Muhammad.
Yeah.
So they ain't been around 100 years. So the thing is, they have to exalt their movement and their way of dealing with what the oppressor, the problem, the social problem we're dealing with above anybody else in the past. That's why they don't mind speaking negatively about the past, because in their mind, those weren't our people. So they debated theology. That's all they did. Really? That's what we gonna say they did.
Yeah, black churches in the past, they was organized. They was the centers for organizing, abolition,
Churches,
civil
period.
rights. Yeah.
Could I ask y'all a question real quick?
Community resilience.
Go ahead, Mr.
Man.
Bates.
What's up, bro?
I mean, it's not Mr. There's an A there instead of an I, but I'm curious if y'all think his view, like if you think he would say his view is limited to just Western civilization.
Well, I mean, like, would he say that if we asked him about his view or the Nation of Islam view?
Let's say both, because like for me, I don't know if the Nation of Islam has touched Britain blacks, Caribbean blacks. I would think not.
With the internet, I'm sure they have.
But I don't think his view would be including them. Is what I would naturally think. But I'm just
So you're
curious.
saying he's talking about the Americas?
Yeah, because I lean on y'all. I think y'all be more informed on more international than myself. So that's why I'm just curious if y'all would think that he's extending it past Western civilization.
Well, I mean, I definitely don't think they have it past Western civilization. They're not even top 20 biggest religions. Mormons are bigger than them. Jehovah's Witnesses are bigger than them. Hebrew Israelites are bigger than them. Well, I mean, yeah. If you count all the different groups of Hebrew Israelites, yeah, they're because you got some that are trying to are citizens over there in Israel, or something like that. They have some kind of arrangement. So then you got Ethiopia, Israel. You got all these. So I don't even think they're not even top 20 biggest religions. So I don't think that they have extension that far in any other place because they barely have extension here where they're birthed. Yeah. I think and their message, because it's so localized and so race specific and geopolitics specific to the Americas, their message wouldn't be as good in Canada or wouldn't be as good in India. That's how you know it's a man-made religion.
So you're kind of touching on my follow-up question I was going to ask both of you guys is that, the Nation of Islam's message to, I'm throwing out Britain blacks. Do you think it would be as powerful? Do you think it would have any like teeth, to it? Or would they just laugh them off? Or is it just, is the Nation of Islam has its power just in American culture, basically?
Yeah,
how are you
pretty
guys?
much very limited to American culture. I mean, I would say Farrakhan is a staple of America. Like, if somebody were to show a video of America, I would think they need to include Farrakhan. Probably need to include Malcolm X, and you probably got to include Elijah Muhammad. Because that movement is significant, especially historically speaking over here. But as far as a religion, they're insignificant. They They had to team up with Scientology. They didn't have any money, and Scientology had the money, but they didn't have any recruits. So they kind of partnered up to some extent. But really, I mean, and there's some prominent Nation of Islam guys like Rizza and, the few other guys that pop up on the internet that are communicating. You haven't really seen them do any real debates, except for I think Rizza did a debate about COVID stuff.
Yeah,
outside of that, you don't really see him in that public space debating because their ideas are so localized. It wouldn't make sense outside of the American context for the most part. Maybe London they can go to.
So on a scale from 1 to 5, with 5 being the greatest, if you were sitting in a debate and you're actually trying to win them over on a logical argument, how high would you rate this point itself and and using it to convince them that their movement isn't as great as they think it is?
For me, it'd probably be like a 2. There's just so much better points to make.
I got you. No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
To me, this one's the most fun. It's one of my favorite points to make. So I might make it first because I just think it's a fun point to make. I've done that with Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons when I'm like, y'all didn't even exist 200 years ago. That's got to mean something to somebody. You find out that you're talking about the Bible and your belief system, how y'all communicate, what y'all think is true and not true. You can't find any writings on it. If this is what Jesus originally believed and wants us to believe, then why is literally you don't find it popping up until Russell Taze or Joseph Smith, so that's the communication I've had with them. And to me, that's a fun conversation, but it's not the strongest or most compelling or even the most important one.
That's interesting. Nice. Okay. On game. Just curious. All right. Master Bates.
Yes, sir, mister.
All right.
Master Bates on live. You feel me?
This is my master. All right, so we're at 7 to 18. You wild dude, man. All right, here we go.
The INTJ humor.
Yeah. It's actually pretty good.
I would love to see the church do that. And then when all of the
Go back. What
pastors
did you want to see the
together
church
in
do?
unity,
Say again.
What did he say he wants the church to do? We got to go back a little bit because he said that he wants to see the church do something.
values that we need to be installed in the culture, because where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? Who is the pastor that can call all the pastors together? I would love to see the church do that. And then when all of the pastors get together and unify all of the Christians, because I seen Jamal Bryant calling out the other Christian pastors who sold out to Target for $300,000. They bought like 30 churches or something crazy for a couple of $100,000. And now I see a pastor got to call out another pastor. It's like, man, I would rather see the Christians come together. And then when they come together, I want to see the Muslims, the Sunnis, and the black Muslims.
Can you pause it real quick? Y'all, this is a critical thinking show. This is a false dichotomy. Calling somebody out and coming together aren't mutually exclusive. Paul called Peter out in the book of Galatians before them all. Calling somebody out is not saying we're not together. Enos calls me out. I call Enos out. We are together. Our togetherness is usually makes it a little easier for us to call each other out instead of calling a stranger out. Iron sharpening iron. The Bible says, when a wise man rebukes you, take the oil on the head. A rebuking tongue will receive more honor than a flattering tongue. An open rebuke is better than hidden love. So we got to understand that when somebody calls you out, that's a friend. That's love. And when he's talking about this utopian idea of what one pastor is going to pull all the pastors together, it's easy for y'all to be on the same page. Y'all follow one guy, y'all are a small group. The church is around the world. Just the Roman Catholics alone, not including any other denominations of Protestantism, not including the Ethiopian, the Coptic Christians over there. The Roman Catholics are a way bigger population than them. So it's a lot easier for them to be unified, and they're not unified. What did Malcolm X do? He splintered from the group. There was a big split between them. So, but my point is saying this. So don't let him sell you on these utopian ideas of one pastor calling everybody together and we agree on every point. We're going to hold each other accountable. That's what we're going to do. You're going to see people get called out. The Bible says rebuke them openly, so they'll be so other people will be afraid to do it, so that people will know the difference between the truth and a lie. Mark those among you who preach something that's false. So we're told in our religious texts to do that. That's a signifier of unity. If I'm hanging out with people that say they're Christian and I do something that's foul and they don't say anything, I'm thinking they don't like me. We are not. Amos 3:3. How come two walk together lest they be in agreement? We have to get on the same page. We need to hold each other accountable. So when he's saying these pastors call other pastors out, that is not a sign of separation amongst each other. That's a sign of unity, because we're calling each other out because we have the same values. So I'm saying, hey, look, you're walking inconsistent with this value that we hold to. Or they may say, hey, Vulcan, you're walking inconsistent with this value that we hold to. I may fight, I may fuss, I may throw a temper tantrum. But if he's right, what I need to do? I need to repent. So don't let him convince you out there, all the folks out there, that just because a pastor calls another pastor out, or who's the pastor gonna bring all the pastors together? There's no reason for them to all get together. They all got their own things going on. Just like in the original part of the church, there was a church at Corinth, the church at Ephesus. They were trying to all come together for something. That's what they were trying to do that for. They all got their own movements. They speak different languages. They got different contexts. They got different missions. They don't need to come together. They're fine where they are. They're doing the work they've been called to do. Y'all are all together because y'all don't have nowhere else to go. Y'all's message is only for one place, for one people. And most folks don't even listen to it, if we're being honest. So it's easy for them to at least pretend to be unified. But the reality is the true unity is in the church. That's why they've done so much in the world. We can continue.
All right.
And I want to see the Christians and the Muslims come together. Now that's a day they fear. That's a day they fear. You think I choose my brothers based on what's their religion? Nah, that's not how I choose my brothers.
Pause it. So he wants to virtue signal right now and be like, you think I choose my brothers because of their religion? Nah. No, you choose your brothers based on something even more superficial, their race. Am I tripping, or this stuff is basic? Is this really that complex of an idea?
Really basic. On principle, I typically stop listening to people that make elementary points like this. But to make it interesting, I do think that they pull more blacks in, but it's not because of any epiphany on a religious or God or self-discovery type of thing. It's more
Crispy
just like
soup.
a brainwash. For sure.
I think it was a crispy soup.
Crispy soup. If he had a crispy soup, for sure, for the facts, it'll draw on more. But
yeah.
Oh, what happened?
I love killed him over there.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what happened.
Where am I? Who is this? No,
the Nation of Islam now.
That, and again, I'm someone who spoke to a lot of different people, backgrounds, religions, etc. Black people believe.
Oh, okay. That's what is going on. All right. When I'm turning, my bad, bro.
It's good. I'm done. Go ahead.
You done? Finish your point, man. That's my bad, bro.
I think a lot of people aren't very bright. Specifically, I'm speaking about like black people on the road to self-discovery, and they end up being the perfect people for this guy right here to come in and start speaking about like just black power, the Nation of Islam tactics, Black Hebrew Israelite tactics.
Yeah.
And I recognize that I think they do draw in more people, more black people than Christianity, but I don't think it has any real teeth or any real substance, if that makes sense.
You think they pull in more blacks than Christianity?
I think so.
Oh, no.
No.
It's not even close.
They might be pulling in more hip hop
They're not
artists
they're not beating out Christianity in any category. I don't think it's even close.
in hip
There's
hop.
there's 2.5 billion Christians.
Well,
What
yeah, of
I,
course that's
I
I
mean,
think
obvious.
I'm talking about like they just have because we talking about blacks just in America. We talking about like the blacks in Africa. We talking about the blacks in Brazil.
Yeah,
How
good
many nations
question.
of Islam in Brazil?
that's why I asked earlier. I'm speaking specifically about like in America, and I mean we will kind of like debate on the goalposts of what a true Christian is, but I'm thinking just your average black American. I have to give it to them. You know, they pull them in, and especially out of Georgia. I grew up in Savannah, Georgia. The majority of the people that I preach the gospel to, I mean, we almost came down to blows. I mean, spending hours together. They didn't convert to Christianity. They converted to. They became Muslim. You
They
Yeah, well,
know,
became Nation of Islam or Muslim.
Nation of Islam.
Okay.
They went.
in the
They went from
South.
crib to blood to Islam. They were
Yeah,
just searching for that brotherhood, that identity. I didn't have no daddy, but I had this older bruh that will buy me shoes, will tell me that I'm something. You know, even know that I sell rocks. It feels good putting money in your mailbox. You
Uh,
know,
I think what it is, Mister. Nah, I think what it is,
I can't
and
name.
I said hip hop, and I'm wondering the prison system, the federal prisons, the state prison. I wonder if it's more black Christians than Nation of Islam. What it is, what this is my theory. It represents a masculine identity. It looks like it's more masculine than others religions for black men. I'm saying you got Farrakhan, charismatic, speak very well, and then the guys that's in prison, they show a level of. It's like they're not in the streets, they're not gangsters, but they still show that toughness that attracts a lot of the black youth. You get what I'm saying? So they have.
And I don't disagree. I mean, y'all can say I'm trying to search for the lyric, but Tupac, Dear Mama, I moved out with the fellas, so I started slanging. He was making I think the main point I was getting at is most black people, whether intellectual, whether they listen to Farrakhan, Malcolm X, Martin Luther, whatever. I don't think most of them look at that, but they have heard Tupac, and Tupac speaks about not having a daddy. He speaks about hanging out with the older guys, slinging rocks or whatever, and that brotherhood just meaning everything. And I think Nation
Yeah.
of Islam comes in and plays gives them a very similar experience, where it's just so easy to gravitate to it.
Well, I mean, but they have a lot of positive benefits, though. They like I said, they stern. It looks like they are going against the powers that be. Discipline. You read the books like Elijah Muhammad, How to Eat to Live. They take their diet seriously. You see these guys out there in
Yeah,
90-degree weather with suits on and not sweating. So
they,
they represent a lot of stuff that I think that we can benefit from. So you got the positive, you got the way to eat, they eat healthy, and they look like they sharp. I mean, they sound sharp. I would
I,
argue they're
I,
not critically
I agree
grounded.
with you,
Uh,
but
so
I think it's a much more similar thing. Like if you think of Christianity is dealing with more self. Hey, if you lie, do you steal, do you murder, do you do this? Yeah, you got to stop that. You're a lying, thieving, murdering, adulterer at heart. Versus what I've seen with the attacks of Islam is more so is this is like, hey, you're black, you're powerful. The world's against you because of how strong and how beautiful you are. It's a message that's a lot easier to grasp for a lot
yeah,
of
because it feeds your cognitive bias. Obviously, yeah, and that's just most people. That's
absolutely.
just them. It's most people like to feed their ego, and that's what happens. Black men is God, and we're the Asiatic man. We're the first people on earth, so it feeds your insecurities.
Yeah, you said it way better than me, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but but that's what cults do. They not just Nation of Islam, Mormonism. Vulcan spoke about this earlier. That feeds a lot of people, not just I wouldn't just designate it to the Nation of Islam. That's why cults are good at what they do. They able to attract people that don't have a strong epistemic framework that they're going off of. I think you were speaking to that earlier.
Can I throw this question at the panel here? I mean, him making the point of all this Christian and Islam allegiance, do you lower his
Well, I
IQ
was.
score for making that
Can
up?
you hold the question? Because I wanted. We got some.
Yeah, my bad. But yeah,
Time.
yeah.
All right. And remember that we can get back to that. We on this one right here. 1850. All right.
I choose my brothers based on those who want for themselves what they want for me.
No, that's not the
They
right
choose
one.
me based on me wanting the
20.
same thing for them.
Right here. Hold on, fellas.
Similar to how Martin and Malcolm was. Martin met with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It's a beautiful picture.
There we go.
He said after the civil rights movement comes the black power. And I don't think we ever got that from the church yet. For our Muslim brothers, I don't think we ever got to the civil rights movement on economics. He died shortly after that because he started focusing on economics. He said after the civil rights movement comes the black power. And I don't think we ever got that from the church yet. For our Muslim brothers,
Pause it.
we can get better on our economics.
So again, if audience out there, if we're judging the church by the religious beliefs of the Nation of Islam, then yes, the church is failing because they get to pick the rules by which we measure the church. And he says the economics. He's got to be talking about it makes no sense because the black church pulls in way more money than the Nation of Islam does. The black church is way more influential politically, economically, socially than the Nation of Islam or anything like that. They don't, politicians don't go to the Nation of Islam when they want to get their politician put in office. They
No
would
bills
if it
was passed.
Yeah, they would if it was a useful thing. They go to the black church.
Well, I just want to add some context. Elijah Muhammad, he did stress that to his followers not to get too deep in politics. This is why he sat down Malcolm X when he spoke about John F. K getting deleted, right?
Yeah.
Because he had took a political stance in the early 20s. Well, I forgot the time frame. Y'all can help me out in the comments. But he was jailed. Oh yeah, because he was speaking against World War II. I'm referring to Elijah Muhammad. He was jailed because of that. And when he started his religion, he told his followers not to participate or comment on a lot of the political affairs that was going on. So I just need more context to. So it's short. What I would just say this: if you look at the Jim Crow, at the end of Jim Crow, the civil rights movement, a lot of the bills that's been passed, a lot of stuff that we are benefiting from now, all came from the church. It didn't come from the Nation of Islam. They wasn't out there fighting to get bills passed. They did not participate in that at all. That's why when Malcolm left and became, I think, a Sunni Muslim, he came back. You notice he went straight to Selma. He started organizing and working with those that were fighting to become more have influence in the political arena for black folks. But
Yeah, and so when he's saying the church hasn't got there with the economic shit, that's false for one, because the church is large, which is the church of Indians and Chinese and Europeans and blacks and all that kind of stuff, is huge, and they're very involved in every aspect of it to the extent that they want to be, because the church's mandate is not to be heavily involved in that stuff anyway. That's not their mandate. They do it as they see needs to do it.
Mhm.
There's abuse, there's misuse, like there are in other organizations as well, because the church is so big, from the Roman Catholic Church to Baptist, Methodist, Episcopalian, Lutheran, Coptic, everything you can imagine, Eastern Orthodox. It's a huge organization within organizations within organizations. And so, yeah, so when he's saying they haven't got there yet, we haven't got there for what he's trying to get done in his religion.
Yeah.
He's judging us by his religion, but the church has beats them out economically. Even the black church, not even talking about the Indian and the Chinese church, it's the black church in America beats them out in every single way. Money, whatever way you want to say it, beats them out, and they're doing more and they're more involved. Just for the church, we're not, people aren't vocal. People, talk to your grandma that's been going to church and giving her money all this time and helping people out. She's just not going around bragging about it. When the Nation of Islam are doing community work, they got the cameras going, all kind of stuff. But our grandma, she ain't doing all that.
Mm-mm.
She went to go, she got her nephew to go volunteer at the local prison and talk to the prisoners and stuff like that. And her grandson, that's a comedian, to go make the prisoners laugh. And nobody knows because grandma don't talk about it. Auntie don't talk about it. That's not the main focus.
And from my understanding, you have to pay. I think you got to pay like close to $5,000-6,000 to be one of the members of Nation Islam. People in the church are not paying for membership. It's different. As far as how they exercise their economics.
I would want to ask further questions, because is he saying like, we haven't, they're not there economically to make more of a political impact, which I mean creates a whole new wave of different questions. But I'd want to ask further questions on it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Sometimes Allah pick my subject. He's been telling me to focus lately.
My bad.
Hold on, go a little bit further back. I want the audience to be able to hear the full context of this.
I had a whole nother message that I wanted to talk about. I wanted to come on here. I had a whole nother message that I wanted to talk about. I wanted to come on here and talk about Bitcoin and crypto and talk to y'all about the tour and what we doing and gotta sell tickets and all of this stuff. But sometimes Allah pick my subject. He's been telling me to focus lately. I understand that I hold position in culture, so calling me out feels like a good clout to chase.
Pause it right there. He's going into the petty dispute amongst him and Lecrae, or whoever was on the show talking about him or whatever. I don't know who exactly is involved. I know it was on Lecrae's show. They called him out or whatever. If you can't handle being called out, because he admits he called other people out as well. He's called the church out. He's called everybody out on this, and then he was talking about people calling him out. That's what happens if you're going to be have big influence in the culture, and you're going to say religious and spiritual views and economic views and social views and political views. People going to come at you. They're supposed to. They're going to cross-examine you. You're going to cross-examine them like you're doing right now. You're going to poke holes in what their perspective is. They're going to poke holes in your perspective. If you can't stand the heat, stay out of the kitchen. You don't have to go online and teach. You could just live a normal life. Go work for UPS, whatever. You could live a normal life. He's choosing to be a communicator of ideas and to be a leader. In a lot of ways, it's very commendable. He has a lot of great leadership qualities. But if you're going to be out there on the forefront, you're going to be the first to get hit with ideas. So going back to what he's talking about and this is something that pastors do, and I've lamented this practice for a long time. He said, I didn't prepare to talk about this. Allah chose this topic. So now how are we supposed to perceive this? Can we validate that? For us to validate that statement, we have to discuss religion now, not later. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
He just said Allah picked his subject, and he's been telling him to focus. That's a religious idea. That's a spiritual perspective he's providing. He's saying that God told him to talk about this today. He said, let's not discuss religion. You can have the debate. You can have the win. Then when are we going to discuss what you're saying right here? You're claiming that God told you. What if I don't believe that God is real? What if I believe that you made that up? Can you demonstrate that? Can you prove that? I don't like what people in the church do that a lot of times. God told me this. God, keep it to yourself. What does what God told you have to do with my life? I got the Bible already. I can't validate your rhema, whatever you believe that God told you. I can't validate that or invalidate that. If I just take your word for it and follow you, now we're in a cult. Now, if you're interpreting the text, that's another thing. I can use the rules of grammar to cross-examine you. Historical context. If I got to take your word that God told you something, now if I listen to you, now I'm just in your cult now. I suspended the only defense I have against false teaching, which is being able to vet it. I can't vet it because I can't prove that God told you that or didn't tell you that. And I thought we're going to discuss religion later on. Why is he giving us his religious beliefs and picking topics and preaching at us now? If you could preach now, we could preach now. And we can discuss each other's preaching. We can keep it going, he knows.
Yeah, I do want to correct myself, sir. As far as I don't think that they have to pay for memberships. I just remember hearing that they pay for pledging for different services that go on in Nation Islam. But I wanted to correct myself on that. You ready?
Yes, sir.
But I gotta say, what would Jesus do? Forget them,
You know
Father,
what?
for they don't not. Keys is different. I'm a brother you can talk to.
I'm gonna fast forward this.
I'm a brother you can build with. Hip hop only reflects hip hop now. They just talk about themselves. They used to talk about fight the power, F the police, and fight the system. It was a reflection of not just the drug dealers, but the activists and revolutionaries. It was a reflection of all the environment of culture. It was a reflection of the dance, the movement, all the things that was happening. But now hip hop reflects the industry. It reflects the emotions. What happened? So therefore, we don't even have a real genre of music. I was talking to my brother Simba about this, that, rapping is not a genre, it's a skill. And right now we have a lot of rappers who are not in the genre of hip hop, but they have the skill of rapping. And we let a lot of people in because they have the skill of rapping, and they reflect the industry of rap, the skill that's monetized and capitalized.
So, any thoughts?
Yeah, we got to stop mirroring these celebrities. You never hear any other culture talk about their music when they're talking about the empowerment of their people, and it's just entertainment. And in some ways, it's the journal or the diary of our plight, our desires, our culture, all of that good stuff, our identity. But it's just a broken reflection of it that's entertaining. These guys want to, hip hop is used to reflect this, that, and the other. You're not going to hear, white groups and Hispanic groups talking about salsa used to be this and then now it's just good music. You like some songs, you don't like other songs. We're trying to deify, our hip hop. KRS-One has a whole different perspective on hip hop than he has. Now there's overlap, knowledge of self and stuff like that. They're probably going to agree on those kind of things. But Nation of Islam and 5%ers, they're not on the same page with a lot of stuff. So my point is when I'm saying, when he's talking about the music and all this kind of stuff right here, the music was bad back then and good. The music's bad now and good. And the music was bad and good in the middle. There was good artists, there was good messages, and there was all bad in there. It was never a perfect thing. And it never will be a perfect thing. It's a human thing. And humans dictate what gets communicated, what gets sold, what gets popular. So it's never, so when he's talking about this unity and hip hop used to be like this, there's no unifying hip hop. Hip hop's not even a religion, and religions don't unify like that because they're going to dispute about their teachings. So this exaltation of hip hop to be some type of heartbeat of Black consciousness and Black liberation, it's a fairy tale. Because not everybody believes they're being oppressed. The people that we know in hip hop are living like the greatest kings of all time, with access and influence that people wouldn't even be able to imagine 1,000 years ago. How do they feel like they're being oppressed? So we can go to the next point.
He just hate the man. It's so simple-minded. And because we don't have a time to think, we just want to vibe. We just want to vibe. Non-thinking music. And when you don't think, there's no consciousness, and you're the easiest to be manipulated and controlled. There's some great young men in our generation who I believe represent the rebirth of hip hop, like our brother LaRussell.
You can go to 29 and 30.
My brother Bashir, my brother Simba.
This is
you know what
we
I'm saying?
passed 29
Kendrick Lamar
already.
is definitely hip hop.
Let me go back. I
No,
skipped
it's
it.
okay.
You know what I'm saying? My brother Lareezy.
There's a dude that calls
My
That's
brother,
fine.
he got
Huh? What'd you say? Bates.
So if there's a guy that calls himself Simba, he gotta come hard. Especially if he no dick.
Pause. This dude. You can't say that.
Hey, I said no Diddy on the words.
Yeah. Mr. Bates
Yeah,
can't say that.
he hey, you said it, not me. But yeah, no Diddy on that bad boy, but he gotta have a killer flow, rhyme scheme, and all that if you gonna call himself Simba.
Yeah, so the point I wanted to make about this, when he talks about hip hop, every time he's been on platforms and been around these hip hoppers that are famous off of talking about the things that he's against right now, is he telling them that? Or is he softening up his blow? We got to get together, y'all. We got to do this. No, say that stuff to the people that can maybe have a chance at him. I don't have the utopian view of how things. I have a more constrained perspective on social behavior and how much we can get people to corral and all do the same thing with education and information and stuff like that. But if he's gonna take this utopian view, go tell that to the rappers that you know and you're friends with. Tell them to change their messages. If they won't listen to you, why do you think these strangers gonna listen to you? You go on your private platform and then you lament and complain and detest the nasty stuff that you hear in the music, but then when you're on your celebrity mode and you're around the big time rappers and stuff like that, and people that you have influence with, you don't say that, you don't have that same message. When do you hold them accountable? When do you tell these guys to put some of these guys you named on the platform? When do you hold these guys to the fire and say, why do you promote this type of music? Don't do it over here with us. Do it with them. Like Malcolm X said when the white lady walked up to him and said, how can I help your movement? He said, well, go to your people. And he said, I don't need your help here. I need you to go to your people and talk to them. It's easy to do the work with me over here. You're white. Go to the white people that would judge you the harshest and would be disappointed in your behavior if you did it, and go talk to them because they're not listening to me. In the same way, 19 keys, the key to all of this is give you your 20th key so you can elevate to your next consciousness. Go to them, those rappers, go to the communicator on your big platform and start to publicly call them to be better as musicians. Do that. That's what D1's doing, who you brought up in this show already. Risk your platform. Do that. Talk to them. Don't try to keep it cool with them. Then go over here and tell us you hate the music. Tell them you hate the music. Tell them why. On live, on the video, and let's see how they respond. Do they respect your words? You saw when Snoop Dogg was on the Breakfast Club, and they was like, now that you're older, do you regret this? Is forget them girls. You know what I'm saying? He doubled down.
Oh.
So my point is just saying, like, go to people that you have all these celebrity relationships with people. Why don't you risk, if you want us to risk our jobs or all this other stuff for this liberation to get rid of the oppressor, you're asking us to sacrifice all that, sacrifice your relationships. You got Rizza Islam going on Corey Holcomb's show all the time, but never once checks Corey Holcomb.
It doesn't, man. It doesn't. They're not hard, not just hip hop, they're not even hard on a lot of the criminal activity that's going on in our communities either. You don't hear them harshly criticizing the way they do the black church. It's not on the same degree, same level. So
yes, sir.
Hey, if I can throw this out at both of y'all for at this timestamp, if y'all were on your lunch break, and let's say you worked a job where you had an hour lunch, and you saw this guy talking these points here, would he be a guy that you would deem worthy of actually challenging, or just be like, yeah, it ain't worth it giving him my lunch for this?
Can he lift the hammer?
Basically, is what I'm asking.
You want me to go, or you want to get that first?
No, Diddy.
Again, you go ahead, Vulcan.
Yeah, so for me, I mean, it's not going to be based off anything somebody's saying. Everybody to me is worth having the conversation with. Now, in this hypothetical world where I'm on a lunch that I'm assuming I have these parameters where I got to be back to work, I'm going to be respectful of my employer's time. But if I have the time to have a conversation with this person, at least maybe to know them a little bit better, to spark a conversation and see where their head's at, that's what I would do. So I think everybody's worthy of that. You know, if you had anything, or are we good?
No, I ain't got anything. No, sir.
All
I
right,
mean, I
sounds
kind
good.
of want to know, you know, as a fellow INTJ, I want to know what he thought. Would he bypass this person and be like, this dude crazy? Or would he be like,
Old Enos or new
let,
Enos?
let me break this young brother.
He said, "Oh, that's funny." He sound that's what this the way you answer that question sound like. Oh, he knows. Like, is he even worthy? But I answer it this way: if I, like you said, we INTJ, if I'm interested in the person, meaning like if they saying some things that I'm interested in, and I'm interested in a lot of the race topics, I will engage and ask questions just to see where their mind is at on some topics, certain topics. So I think it's worthy because I'm interested in these topics. So yes.
That's interesting because if I'm on a lunch break, I heard this dude's argument, I'd be like, brother, you probably didn't graduate high school. No, sir. I'm about to microwave my little Alfredo.
Yeah.
And I'm moving on with my life. And okay.
Yeah. All right, Enos, what we doing here?
Closing out, or you got one more?
We can close it out.
All right. So just I start off. I want to thank y'all for tuning in. Please make sure you like and subscribe, and we're gonna finish the rest of this video. We're gonna revisit this video and explore some more and dissect a lot of his talking points. Yes, sir.
All right, all the folks out there, thanks for tuning into the show. We had a great breakdown. 19 Keys is a great communicator, and he was perfect for us to break this stuff down because he does such a good job of communicating his ideas, making it easier for the audience to see the difference between what he's saying and what we're saying, and in a real cohesive way. So tune in. This is part 1. We're going to do a part 2, and always stay critical. Don't just believe people because they are charming and they say it with conviction and telling you God told them all this other kind of stuff right here. When Paul was preaching to the Bereans, God told Paul, but the Bereans still didn't go with it. They said, I'm going to look in the scripture and see if what he's saying is true. Be a Berean, be noble. Don't just fall for the hype. And that's the Vulcan. We out.
Out.
I'm here to stay on my soapbox and proclaim that to the world.
On this show.
This is the hottest show on the planet right now.
What's the debate?
Ain't no debate.